Hey, have you seen this TikTok family pairing thing?
Yeah, it's a bunch of settings we can customize.
So, like...
So Shauna's parents will be like, okay, so I'm thinking 40 minutes of screen time a day. And Shauna's all like, what? I think 60 is fair. Or you know how Ricky posts those 6 solos? Well, his dad's like, these are sick, but they're only sick for you and your friends. Or you could be like, I'm extending your screen time, son, and your curfew.
I don't sound like that. Do I sound like that?
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Woo! We're excited to have you guys here
The rally made us a little sleepy, I think.
for day 2.
We're starting a little late. We have some incredible highlights to watch from last night.
Yeah, let's check them out.
Let's see them. Who made it to the rally? Yes. Woo!
We had a good group. We had a lot of people there. It was a lot of fun. Let's see.
Out of the shadows, bound for the gallows, a dead man walking, till love came calling. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. 6 feet under.
Hope to survivors.
Now that you saved me, I think 'cause you gave me.
I stand here for myself as a survivor. I stand here as a mom of my 2 beautiful children. And I certainly stand here for each and every survivor that got up here this evening to speak, and every single survivor out there that is standing there knowing they're a survivor, whether they share it or not. It takes a lot of courage, and I'm so grateful and so proud of everyone.
What a night. What a night. What a night.
Well done. Well done, everybody. Thanks for joining us. That was a lot of fun. I think we have some prizes from some photo.
Best pictures.
Best picture from yesterday. We have, you want to announce the prize?
We have 5 bags from Supriya, one of our amazing sponsors. And we're going to call out people. We need you to stand up if you're here.
We want to
and we'll
hear you loud because they need to hear where to take it. So let's hear first from Lisa Eldred. Is Lisa here?
Lisa!
There she is.
Woo! We got Denise Hazlitt. Denise!
Parker Miller. Is he here? Oh, is she here? Parker, there we go.
Parker's over here in the middle. And Aaron Walker. Yeah, Aaron.
And finally, Tobias Naruki. Tobias, where are you, Tobias? There we go, right there. Okay.
In the center.
Thank you so much for our sponsor, Supriya, for sponsoring these bags. And to keep taking those photos. We're going to keep doing this. What's next?
Housekeeping.
Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that everybody is aware of the classes that are being available in the morning. So this morning we had yoga and smart defense. And if you're interested, those are incredible opportunities. Come at 7 o'clock. What rooms are they in?
Back here.
Back in this area.
I forgot what they're called.
Come
Columbia
join us.
A and B.
Yes, they're incredible opportunities to learn from incredible individuals. Please join us for those events. What else?
All right, today is a full day. We've got this general session, then we'll have lunch, and then we'll have breakout sessions after that, including some activity time where we get to be active again. So let's go.
We got some incredible breakouts today. Amazing speakers. I'm excited.
We want to just watch. Hey, Andrew, AV friends, are we able to play a video from Supriya? I forgot to ask you. We're just talk from here. Give me a thumbs up if yes. 1 minute. That's okay, we'll show it later. We can get right to the parable. You're all so quiet. So quiet. Come on.
Let's see, we got the exhibitors. Has everyone had a chance to go talk to some exhibitors here? Yes? They're incredible, yes, thank you. And before we jump into this, I just want to say that I was talking to some individuals this morning, and I keep on asking people, like, what was your favorite part of yesterday, or why are you here? And the answer keeps coming back, and it's to connect with one another and to learn from one another and to network. So lean into those opportunities. Sit with other people that you haven't come with to learn and grow from one another. People are looking for resources to bring back to their areas and their countries. And this is the power of this summit. So we're excited to continue that.
All right, friends, I want to share with you today a story that deeply influenced my life, the river parable. Have any of you heard this one? It's a really common story in public health. All right, here I go. So I believe it's really relevant to our movement. Imagine a peaceful village nestled by a river. One day, as the villagers were working in their fields, they noticed a tiny figure flailing for help in the menacing rapids of the river. It was a child. Shocked and alarmed, they rushed to pull him from the water and saved his life. But the next day, more people were seen floundering and sputtering in the river. The villagers again sprang into action, putting themselves into great danger, attempting to rescue everyone they could reach. They then rallied their resources to provide the people with food, clothing, shelter. As days turned into weeks, the number of people in the river increased dramatically. Soon, the entire village was consumed with operations striving to help those, as many as they could. The villagers became exhausted. The relentless flow of those in danger showed no signs of stopping. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't save everyone. A sense of hopelessness began to settle on the village. Imagine the tension and the heartbreak of seeing more being lost than ever before. The fear of their loved ones falling into danger too. Imagine the burnout and the apathy felt by all of those in the village. One day, a few villagers suggested an idea. What if we go upstream to find out why these people are ending up in the river in the first place? Then maybe we can find a way to fix the issue. A heated debate erupted. We can't do that. Every available hand is needed to help those right in front of us. As it is, we can't keep up. Exactly, others retorted. We can't keep up. We need to address the root cause of why this is happening, or the number of people lost will only continue to grow. Eventually, the village elders decided to send a small group upstream. As they journeyed, they encountered numerous challenges, from treacherous terrain to hostile forces, but they pressed on, driven by the hope of finding a way to stop the tragedy. Finally, the upstream group discovered the truth. It was a combination of natural disasters, malicious acts, and systemic failures that were causing people to end up in the river. It was this complex web of factors, but with the knowledge, they could begin to address the root causes and prevent more people from being thrown in the river. Okay, so if we apply this to our movement, the truth is that both those insisting on going upstream and those working frantically to help those out of the river play a very crucial role. Like the villagers, our movement is filled with those who are speeding to help at every level. So I want to talk about some of the different spaces. There's some of us who are called to alert others. We're the voices that help everyone see what's happening. We're rallying more hands to help. Who of you in the audience feel like this is your role? You're here to help people understand that there's a problem in the first place. Can we stand up if this is your space? I want you to see each other because I want you to find each other here. So you know that that's what you're called to do. You're the ones who are making the invisible visible. You are shining a light on the hidden horrors. Thank you. Thank you. And then there are others who are jumping in to help. You're the brave souls who jump in to pull people out of the river. You're providing critical services to survivors and risking often your own life and safety. Can those stand up who are doing that, the direct intervention? Yeah. Thank you. You are the frontline heroes. Oh, I'm going to cry. This is powerful. And then there are others who are supporting, I think this is probably the hardest, the lifelong healing of each other. You commit to the long-term work of supporting lifelong healing, helping survivors rebuild their lives and reintegrate into society. Can those of you stand who are working in that space? Your dedication is the bedrock of their support system, and your work is what helps individuals find hope and healing. You know and you love tirelessly. All right, then there are these. There's so many. Oh, okay. The problem persists, though, right? Despite all of these efforts, the problem is persisting. Many are watching on and feel overwhelmed, and they feel helpless. We have to acknowledge that no matter how many we help, the flow continues. No matter how many people we pull out of the river, we can't keep up unless we go upstream. So we need those who raise the alarm and educate communities on how to avoid getting trapped in the snares of exploitation, who equip the parents and the youth to protect themselves from falling into the snares. We need those who address vulnerability factors like poverty and discrimination. Who in this room is doing that? Let's see. Let's stand up. You're more upstream. Thank you. We need those who are building dams, who are creating safe spaces and creating systemic safeguards, ensuring that protection, then reducing the risk of harm. But what if we can change the system entirely? What if we could remove the danger at its source by stopping perpetrators, by holding accountable those who facilitate harm, and ensuring that technology policies prioritize safety? We can truly work for a world free from sexual exploitation. Friends, every single one of us is needed to create that systemic change. Those who are seeking to work upstream need to know what's happening downstream. And that's what we're doing here at this summit today. And this week, we're all gathering together for a moment to learn and to network and to strategize so that we can stop these problems at the root. I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys. We'd like to introduce the host for the day. We're going to invite Casey and Kinsey up. You want to come up here, Casey? And I'll introduce Casey as she's coming up. Casey Malouf is, her and her husband back in 2003 started a company called Malouf Companies, which is a bedding and home furnishings company. And in 2016, formalized your charitable giving and created and founded the Malouf Foundation, which focuses on the healing journey and providing resources in this space, something that Don just spoke about in that parable. I've worked with Casey now for many years, 5 years together. We co-founded the Phase Alliance. She's the chairman of the board of the Phase Alliance. I could not speak more highly of Casey. She's an incredible woman. She's an inspiration, and I'm so grateful to be a co-founder and serve on the Phase Alliance board with you.
Welcome, Casey. And Kinsey Chadwick, she serves as interim president at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, a member of our board, longtime friend. She attended the very first summit. That's how we met, and we've been close ever since. And over 20 years working in this field. She helped to start the Turn Your Life Around program with Selah Freedom in Florida, which has been really a foundational program that we've replicated across the U.S. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Don and Clay. We are so excited to be here, and we really wanted to start by sharing our why. Excited to meet many of you over the next few days and learn your why and why you're here. I would say why I'm here is because we're not done yet, unfortunately. So I love that I'm seeing so many new faces and meeting so many new people because that's just how much we've grown. And so I would have said my why for being here specifically today is because really getting to that root has become the key focus of who we are. Without doing that, we're just raising generations of children that are at risk and being exploited daily. And my newest why is I now have a 5-month-old daughter. And so, thank you. I look at her and now I have a new why. Just looking in her eyes, I'm like, geez, what will this world look like? And so I pray and hope that with all of us, and as we grow, we're stronger together and that we can really do more so that her life isn't as risk for being exploited as she grows up in this world.
Thanks, Kinsey. I'm really grateful and excited to be here as well. As Clay mentioned, about 20 years ago, my husband and I started a bedding business, making sheets and pillows and mattresses and things like that. That really fulfilled a primary need for people. And after a couple years of doing that, we started having people approach us and asking if we could donate to them. And we did that. And through getting to know those people, understanding just how widespread sexual exploitation was in our community, in our state, in our country, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that I literally had no idea. And that's why I'm really passionate about education and talking to people about sexual exploitation and the issue that it is in our world and in our country and our community. And I remember going to our local children's advocacy center and them telling me, we live in a rural, farmy, northern Utah town where people think nothing bad ever happens, and they told us that we had almost 400 kids a year coming through that center for abuse, neglect, sexual exploitation, all those things, and that was just really, really hard to hear. And because I was in a position to try to make a difference, we continued to give away bedding and do those things, but over the last decade really tried to grow that into more spreading awareness about this issue. And so that's, when Don was talking about that parable and the people that are passionate about that piece, that's me for sure, where I feel like once people know what's going on and the issue that it is, they will want to make a difference. I used to feel kind of maybe like I wasn't as relevant maybe in the space because I didn't have a personal experience with it, and I didn't have anyone that was close to me that had experienced sexual exploitation. But I think the whole point is that we can all make a difference, whether or not that has actually happened to us. And there's lots of reasons why. I have children too, and just thinking about the world I want to leave for them, and just how it's really going to take all of us as a movement to make change here. And so that's what we do at Phase, and why I'm here. So thank you for being here too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead. We are going to start today strong. I'm sorry, Casey. We have such similar initials. I'm just about to take over for you.
Oh, you're
Go ahead, Casey.
You probably should. You'll do it better than me, for sure. Okay, well, we want to welcome John DeMay to the stage. After the tragic loss of his 17-year-old son, Jordan, to a sextortion scheme, John has become a passionate advocate for accountability and justice, dedicating himself to holding the responsible parties accountable and challenging big tech companies to prioritize the safety of young users. So thank you for being here.
Good morning.
John, thank you so much for being a voice. We're honored that we get to sit on stage with you today, and your wife Jessica is here. Thank you for being here, Jessica.
Beautiful wife, Jessica.
Beautiful wife. The fact, there's so much. We got the privilege of just meeting you before we got on stage, but I'd love you to explain a little bit about Jordan's story, and let me just jump right into this, but I'm wondering how you feel with Kosa just passing, because I feel like without parents there, I don't know that it would have passed, to be honest. But looking in the eyes of parents and how strong you are as a dad, that you could sit there and fight for justice for your son. And so share a little bit about your story, Jordan's story, and thank you.
Yeah, really, it's not my story. It's Jordan's story, and unfortunately, we're just the delivery here. So, but Jordan was, he was 17 years old, couple 6-8 weeks from his 18th birthday, 185 pounds, 6'2", all-star basketball player, all-conference basketball player, football player. Played baseball, super happy kid, handsome, popular, the perfect target. He really was. And, you know, he was this close of moving out of the house and starting a new life and on his own as an adult. And 2 years ago, March 25th, I woke up and I found him in his bedroom with a gunshot wound to the head on the day that we were supposed to leave on a Florida vacation for 2 weeks. And so, as you can imagine, we were all pretty shocked. And why, what happened, this happy kid who had his bags packed at his feet on the bed, ready to go to Florida, is gone. And it's difficult, and you just, I remember standing there just wondering why. And then 2 days later, a photo emerged of himself, and it was sent to his girlfriend. And we found out that he was being extorted for money from a picture that he had sent to a young lady on Instagram. So about 4 days later, after we sent the picture to the detective that was handling the case, it went to the FBI. The FBI, the Sheriff's Department initially sent in, oh, I'm sorry, a little closer. Okay. Yeah, I understand, thank you. So this explicit picture was found, and we sent to the detectives. They immediately knew what it was originally. Obviously, they see these cases all the time. Sent in for search warrant preservation warrants to Meta, which were denied under the emergency procedures that they had. Eventually went to the FBI. 4 days later, we get the entire transcript of what happened that night. It was 6 hours of torture. It started at about 10:15 at night. The night that I saw him the last time, he'd actually just received his first message from what he thought was a young lady named Danny Roberts. Danny Roberts was actually a man from Nigeria. And fast forward 6 months, the FBI actually located and arrested 6 Nigerians, 3 of which are indicted in the United States, 2 of which are here sitting in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They're going to be sentenced. They pled guilty, and they're looking at 30 years in prison. One of them is still in Nigeria fighting extradition, and actually Wednesday morning, 5 Americans were arrested in Atlanta and Birmingham for the money laundering side. So we have 11 people in custody. So I got here because what happened is our community was devastated when Jordan died. Everybody couldn't understand why this kid would do that. So when we discovered that he didn't kill himself, he was literally murdered into my bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning, 6 hours after his first text message. And his mother and I, and my wife and our family decided we needed to let the community know that this stuff is going on because it's happening. And obviously they were continuing to do it because other people were getting messages after Jordan died. So we talked to the sheriff whom we knew, and he said, hey, we don't normally want to comment on suicides, but this is different, and if you're comfortable, let's do it. So we did a press conference, and here we are today. But I'm just thankful that all the people in this room, and there's tech people in here, and there's probably law enforcement in here, and survivors, and all the people that are making this thing happen, but it's real. And I'm former law enforcement, and I can tell you that it's a tragedy because as soon as you scratch the surface a little bit, there's so much. And I was at a law enforcement conference in Atlanta last month, and I'm hearing that literally every single teenager that's on social media is getting targeted for this type of crime. Every single one. So if you're a parent in here and you think your kids are not being targeted, wrong. You're wrong. It's just a matter of how much they bite into it. They're getting the fake requests, these hacked accounts, they're reaching out to them. Whether they're deleting them, whether they're friend requesting them and then communicating with them and then shutting it down, whether they're sending them money, they don't tell you, whether they're sending them pictures and they don't tell you. It's from one end of that spectrum all the way other, but every single teenager is getting targeted, and it needs to stop. And the tech companies in this room need to make it happen.
Thank you, John. There's so many questions I could ask you, but I want to ask you, in the last couple years, looking at tech and the accountability you're going after, what do you think is some of the most important things with COSA, just with what's going on? What do we need to hear that you're working on that's so pivotal with this case?
Well, right, it's a lot of different things. We have this big criminal movement that's happening. Jordan's case is the first one in the United States history that's had extradition for sextortion out of Nigeria. So in the law enforcement community, Jordan's very well known. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, was just in Nigeria recently speaking with Nigerian officials regarding Jordan's case and building that relationship. So hopefully those connections will help other families today who are grieving, who don't have a voice, and those who are going to be victims tomorrow. So there's that piece, and there's the awareness piece, which we've been doing for a long time, but there's the accountability piece, right? It's the tech companies that aren't doing enough, and COSA is wonderful, and there was several other bills that were on the table that were wonderful, but I was in DC here 6-7 months ago talking about COSA in front of a committee that was fully on board, and it passed last week. I mean, why is it 6 months, folks? Simple. Why is it 6 months? And it's not enough. COSA's not enough.
Well, obviously this case is historical, precedent setting, and the sentencing is set for next month. Is that
correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Tell us about how you feel like this case is significant when we look forward to things like this happening in the future. How is this going to change things?
I think first off, the word is getting overseas, from the FBI officials and the people that I've talked to, that the word on the street overseas is that we got to be careful. We can't be killing these kids. So that's a small piece of it, but it's something that might save lives, right? They have to understand that just because there's an ocean between us, this country will come after you with the full weight of this law enforcement and everything, and they will come after you if they can. So it's happening, and I think as the relationships build, other treaties get signed, and some of those governmental red tape issues kind of dissolve, I think we'll have a much more successful time bringing folks back and holding them accountable.
Well, it really is kind of uncharted territory, right? I mean, it's
Certainly.
exciting that, and amazing that you've pursued it like you have and been such an advocate for your son. I have 3 teenagers, so, it's something I think about a lot, just, how difficult that would be. So appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, since you mentioned that, Casey, with teenagers, let's take advantage. I think, how many parents do we have in the room? Just a few. Okay.
2.
So you've got an audience of a few parents. Tell us what you would tell each and every one of us and what conversations we need to be having with our children.
I think the biggest thing is we really need to limit what we let our children do on these devices. The entire world is at our fingertips. And it's hard. I spoke with a friend of mine I went to high school with in Menards for 45 minutes the other day, and she's like, John, it's so hard. I'm banging my head against the wall every day trying to get my 16-year-old to understand this stuff, and she's pushing and driving. I said, just keep doing it. You're not the bad mom. You're being the good mom. You're being the responsible mom. Just keep pushing. And it's hard. I'm a dad, too. I have an 8 and 10-year-old at home, and they all want phones and everything else. It's going to be hard. Well, all my friends do. Well, sorry. It is what it is. You got to be a parent. I use this analogy all the time. Would you all let your 14-year-olds run around in a strip club? Probably not. Probably wouldn't let them run around on Instagram and Facebook either, because to be honest with you, that strip club is probably more secure than social media is. So think about that next time you hand the entire world to your 14-year-old daughter to go sit in her room by herself.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too, I mean, I'm not the best example of this, but just having that, open communication with your children and not being afraid to address hard topics like that, even though it's awkward and hard and not something that you look forward to doing maybe, but just how important that is. And then, just not only your own children, but just, talking about this issue, talking about this case, and just being, making people open or aware and of all the things that you're doing. So thanks for doing that. What specifically do you feel like are things that we could take away to help our kids?
Yeah.
Are there things specific you'd say?
Yeah, one thing that I really never paid much attention to, and one of our FBI agents had told me this early on. He said one of the common denominators in these cases is exclusivity. Your children are being exclusive with technology, and technology is great. I'm a technology guy too. I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up with pagers and no phones, and now we have all this stuff, so I like it. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a good idea to let our kids sit in their bedrooms with the door closed with it. They're in the basements or in their spaces all alone. I mean, if you want to have technology, let's keep it out front, because if your son or daughter is being extorted or things are bad are happening, it's not going to happen when they're sitting on the couch next to you while you're watching the news. So keeping the technology away from them exclusively, probably putting some time limits. I mean, when Jordan was young, we had everything. I had a separate wireless router that he didn't even have access to ours, and it shut off at 8 o'clock, and I had every parental control on it, but he found ways to work around that over time, and we just, as parents, work around it. But do all those things and put your time restriction on it, put screen time limits on it. There's just so much negativity, and there's so many more positive things that we could all be doing. My girls run around our neighborhood with the other kids all day and play and build forts and, sled and do all the things. That's what kids need to be doing. Getting some dirt underneath the fingernails.
What specifically do you feel like tech companies should be doing to protect our kids better?
Everything, right? COSA is wonderful. These are all great things, and I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of stuff about Section 230, which gives social media companies blanket immunity for pretty much anything. So, my son and all these other young people that have died because of social media, they have no accountability, and that needs to change. If social media can sit on Capitol Hill and tell us all how above board their business is, right? They're great and they're doing all these wonderful things, and then why wouldn't they just let 230 vanish and everybody under the planet could sue them? But you know what? They would win every single time because they're so above board, right? But the fact of the matter is they're not. So. But what I'd like to see, honestly, is I'd like to see tech companies build some AI technology to monitor IP addresses. I would love to see some federal legislation that would force them to ID verify. With those two things alone, probably would cut down 70-80% of the crime itself. Every single laptop computer has an IP address, and the 4 men in Nigeria bought hacked accounts from another group and use those hacked accounts simultaneously on the same device to victimize multiple people at the same time. Guess what? Meta has a technology to know that. They have the technology to know that. Why didn't they not flag that, shut those accounts down, flag them, have a human person look at them, say, oh, this is okay, and move on? It's a program that could probably probably a college level programmer could probably put that together in an afternoon for them if they needed to call somebody. ID verification, simple, right? I had to have an ID to get on an airplane yesterday. We have to have an ID to go vote. Simple things, right? Have some sort of KYC, which is know your customer technology that says, hey, I'm gonna have a Facebook account, here's my address, this is who I am, a real person, right? They have to verify that a real human being exists on this platform. It's just simple things, but it's user count, and they use user count to sell ads, and ads make money. So that's the problem that we're all running into. So those are the two big things that I'd like to see the tech companies focus on.
Thank you, John. That's our questions, but I do want to just leave a space if there's anything we didn't ask that you want to leave us with today. Or just
get your kids outside.
That's good. Love that. I think I hear from so many people, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this. People DM me on Instagram and say, I want to be a part of ending exploitation. How do I help? And the first question I ask them is, do you talk to your children? And a lot of times they're like, no, that's awkward. And I'm like, well, that's where you start. That's where you start. And so I think, thank you for your bravery to tell us all and remind us all to talk to our children. I love your simple solutions for tech, even though clearly not that simple because it's not happening. And so if you're here with tech today or have questions or want to ask John, he'll be here. So let's connect and grow stronger from this moment. So thank you for being with us, John.
Thank you.
So I would love to take a moment and thank some of our sponsors. We have Delavit, Defend Young Minds, and Exodus Cry. Thank you. We're going to show some videos.
So many people are interested in fighting. So many people are interested in fighting trafficking, but not many people know why it happens in the first place. Exodus Cry exists to connect the dots for people so we can pull trafficking up by its roots. To do this, we have to protect children from exposure to porn. We have to create stronger penalties for sex buyers and pimps. And we need to expose the way the sex industry is preying on innocence and vulnerability. But the secret weapon in all of this is people like you. We need your voice in this fight. So let's uproot sex trafficking together.
As soon as a child has access to the internet, they need age-appropriate warnings for digital dangers. The Good Pictures, Bad Pictures books make it simple. Good Pictures, Bad Pictures uses easy-to-understand science to teach kids how to defend themselves from the dangers of pornography. Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior teaches young kids simple ways to stay safe online. Arm your kids today with Good Pictures, Bad Pictures.
Delavit is standardizing a safe and consensual internet by empowering everyone to assert control over illegal and unethical sharing of digital content. With Delavit's reporting platform, anyone can request removal of infringing links in seconds and track the progress of their reports with complete transparency. Delavit is free for reporting organizations and their clients. Delavit's compliance platform streamlines and automates compliance with notices of infringement, reduces legal liability, saves time, and delivers an instant return on investment, making it the obvious choice for ISPs, OSPs, online platforms, and websites.
Thank you. Love that. Thank you to our sponsors. So we're now going to introduce our next session, which we're going to continue with the theme to talk more about generations at risk. Unveiling AI's impact on youth and sexual exploitation. So we'd like to welcome the following 5 speakers to join us on stage. When we announce you, please feel free to come on up. We've got Fallon McNulty, who is the Director of Cyber Tipline for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Fallon focuses on response strategies to emerging abuse trends and liaises with external law enforcement industry stakeholders. Thank you, Fallon.
We would also like to welcome Ava Smithing, Director of Advocacy and Operations at the Young People's Alliance. Ava has been a force on Capitol Hill working with congressional offices to strengthen user protection from social media companies through data privacy legislation. Thanks for being here, Ava. And we also have Adam Dodge, co-founder of NTAB. Adam has written extensively on technology-enabled abuse and non-consensual pornography, including creating a guide for victims of non-consensual deepfake pornography.
Senior Intelligence Analyst at the Network Contagion Research Institute. He has trained thousands on today's trends in open source investigations, intelligence analysis, fraud, digital risk, crisis management, and corporate security. And lastly, we have Antoinette Basson. She's a research director at the Bureau of Market Research at the University of South Africa. Dr. Basson has conducted extensive research on complex psychosocial issues and their impact on youth, including online sexual exploitation and abuse. And we'd love to welcome Clay back to host this session.
Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to have this conversation. This is definitely something that is facing our youth. Can you guys hear me okay? Not so well. Can I borrow that one? Is that okay? Can you guys hear me better? I can hear me better. I'm sure you can too. So I am very excited for this conversation. This is definitely a topic that is on a lot of people's minds. The risks and dangers of AI to young people today. I think that there's so much good that is going to come of AI. And we've talked a little bit about some of that already, but young people are going to be pushing those boundaries. I have a friend that's done some research on this and out of a university out west, and he texted me this morning and shared a little bit of some of his findings. And he shared with me that according to his national representative research, that 1 in 3 Gen Z young adults have interacted with AI romantic partners. And that the vast majority of those are very sexual in nature, and that he said that the vast majority of Gen Z were open to and willing to engage in romantic relationships with AI. This is something that is changing the landscape of how we interact and connect with one another and the world around us. So the curiosity and the availability of this type of technology is shaping young people and how they develop. So this is definitely a topic that we want to hear from, and I'm excited to hear from each one of you, and we want to give all the time to you guys to speak. So we're going to first give it to you, Fallon, and let you kind of take the stage. Go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Clay. Good morning, everyone. And I think I already missed my first instruction, which I did not grab the clicker as I was coming up here.
Well, I can grab that. There you go.
Thank you very much. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Fallon McNulty, and I'm here today on behalf of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I have the honor of serving as our director of the Cyber Tip Line, which in the United States serves as the clearinghouse, the reporting mechanism for both members of the public as well as electronic service providers to be submitting reports of suspected online child sexual exploitation. So what does that mean? That means that if something is happening, if a parent knows that their teen is being exploited, if a teen is chatting with someone online and they have concerns about that, or if they're concerned that imagery of themselves is being circulated, they can call us. Our team is going to intake that report. We are going to make sure that it is getting out to law enforcement, and we are going to put them in touch with any resources that we can to ensure that they are getting all of the help and the support that they need. Also means that electronic service providers or tech companies within the US have an obligation to report apparent child sexual abuse material, online enticement, instances of child sex trafficking, and any other type of exploitation to the Cyber Tip Line. Very similarly, our team is looking at all of that information that is coming in with those reports, determining where in the world are these offenders, where are any of the child victims who are included within those reports, what information is provided so that we can make those reports available to law enforcement and understand how urgent is this situation. Is this something where a child is imminently at risk right now, where we need to prioritize that and ensure that somebody is going to be going out and doing some safeguarding today? So with that background, I'm here to talk to you about a concern that we have, that I know many child serving professionals share, and it is the emergence of generative AI. So as we talk about AI, and all technology can be leveraged for good, and bad actors can also use it to harm children. So the tip line, you may have heard from my colleague yesterday, Michelle Delon, who provided remarks. We received over 36 million reports last year. It's a staggering volume. When we're talking about generative AI, the concern there is the ease of this technology, that these numbers are going to proliferate, the real harm that this has to children, to survivors, and the prevalence of how often we're going to see this in the future if measures are not taken now. And so on this first slide, I really just want to show you the volume that we're talking about. So over the past 18 months, our team has tracked nearly 8,000 reports that had some type of generative AI nexus. Now, when we talk about reports, something to keep in mind is also that electronic service providers are able to include imagery so they can upload files into those reports as well. So 8,000 might not sound like many, but it is when we talk about the number of images, videos, the content that's being created and circulated. And we know that one report is too many because each of those reports represents a child that's being harmed. So where are these reports coming from when we're talking about generative AI? They are coming from three main sources that you'll be able to see on this chart. We're certainly receiving reports from members of the public, from children who are saying, somebody messaged me, they created an image of me, I've seen it, it looks scary real. And based on the imagery we are seeing, we have the same concern that some of this is visually indistinguishable. We're understanding the way that they are being impacted from the next kind of bubble that you'll see on the screen there. About 1,600 reports that are coming in from generative AI platforms themselves. So these are the companies that have actually created or hosting the models. We're talking about image models where individuals can enter text in or prompts to create any image or video that they're looking for. They can upload files, including known CSAM, to some of these companies to try and manipulate or generate new CSAM. They can engage with chatbots to ask them to pretend to be a child and engage in sexually explicit conversation with them. They can also be asking them to create disturbing guides or manuals. So how do I go out? How do I groom and entice a child? How do I find a child to abduct and rape without being caught? Tell me in 50 steps. And then I really want to bring your attention to this very large bubble that you'll see on the screen. This is the one that certainly has my concern, my attention, is the number of reports that we're receiving, which is over 70%, have come from traditional platforms. What that means is that content is being created on platforms that are not necessarily engaging with NCMEC or reporting to the cyber tip line, but that are out there, whether that companies that have created open source models or one of these many different apps that are available online. In these quotes, this is something, just last week I was doing just a quick search on a very popular search engine, and dozens of apps came up. Unclothe apps, undress apps, nudify apps. These are some of the quotes, the first tagline within those search results of how these companies are branding themselves. And so when we think about that big bubble of where this content is coming from, it's apps like this. It is open source technology that offenders are able to download, and then that content is being re-uploaded and shared across the traditional web. So we're seeing it on social media, we're seeing it on file sharing sites, we are hearing from teens and from families that children are being texted or emailed this content that's been created of them. And this is how some of those apps that are not engaging and are not regulated are advertising themselves. Create deep nude photos of whoever you want. Fast and easy online surface. One of them says it's safe to use. It's anonymous. You can create these images in minutes. So one of the things that we are very cognizant of, and of course, everyone in this room is, and what we need tech and everyone to be aware of is this is real harm. We are seeing survivors being re-victimized as their content is being manipulated and re-uploaded. Real children who are being impacted through sextortion and other sexual exploitation. We're seeing, again, those creations of those guides and this imagery that creates an entire desensitization to the problem. And so really that is, if there's one thing to kind of take away, is just really how harmful and impactful this is. In closing, I just want to also plug that NCMEC can help. So while this is emerging, while this is a very much concerning, there are resources out there. So certainly reporting to the cyber tip line, we can intake those reports, help anybody get additional services, and get that report out to law enforcement so perpetrators can be brought to justice. We also have our free Take It Down service. I have a colleague who is going to be speaking here tomorrow morning, Catherine Riffenbark. She is going to be talking about this service in depth, but this is available to anyone online to help get imagery of themselves removed if there is a concern that that is on the internet, including imagery that was created with generative AI. We also have a number of prevention services, and we do have a booth here, so I hope everyone has a chance to swing by and get some education materials about how you can talk to children, information for kids of all ages and for any teachers, child serving professionals that are out there. What are the issues that NCMEC is seeing, and how can we talk to kids about it? So with that, I thank you.
Thank you, Fallon. And before you get the mic, I just want to ask a follow-up question. So, I mean, this is, again, so I think for a lot of people, they're not fully aware, the general public is not fully aware of these challenges. Where are we at, do you know, from a legislative perspective on criminalizing these nudifying apps or making them illegal to begin with for the even production? The fact that you saw those advertisements from those companies themselves saying, hey, this is available, clearly that we have to be taking actions against those content creators.
Absolutely. And so I think, we always see that technology moves very, very fast, and we are always playing catch up. So with legislation, there are a number of bills that have been introduced, some of which are moving forward. SHIELD Act certainly is one that we are following very closely. We really need the support to ensure that every bill that is out there right now that is aiming to end child sexual exploitation and help to hold tech accountable is gathering support.
Thank you. And one more question. We saw yesterday on a chart from Michelle, your CEO, just how many tips that you're receiving on the tip line, and that is only increasing. Is that partly due to the advancement of AI and the new opportunities for people to exploit?
So we are very concerned that the emergence of AI is going to create an even larger wave. But last year, of those 36 million reports received by the cyber tip line, only 4,700 concern generative AI. So we already have a huge, huge scale when we're talking about this issue. And certainly now that AI is available and so out there, easy to use, we worry that those numbers are going to increase.
Okay, thank you so much, Fallon. Give it up for Fallon. Ava, we'd love to hear from you next. The stage is yours.
Hey y'all, I'm Ava Smithing. I'm here today on behalf of the Young People's Alliance, but really I'm here today on behalf of myself. As the Gen Zer on the panel, I'm gonna shake things up a little bit and just tell you all a story, if that's okay with y'all, to really help you understand the gravity at which exploitation at large is integrated into the everyday lives of young people that are currently using social media. So when I was 12 years old, I was fed by an algorithm posts on Pinterest that taught me I needed to be skinny and then taught me how to starve myself. Flash forward 11 years later, and I'm regularly face to face with Ozempic advertisements, or Row advertisements, which is the telehealth brand that allows you to get Ozempic online. And these two things are not a coincidence. Me being conditioned by an algorithm, content fed to me through that algorithm for my entire life, to believe that I needed to be thin, And then boom, Ozempic ads. No, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying that Ozempic was created 20 years ago and there's this giant ploy to have all of us be prescribed to it. But I am saying that this isn't a happy coincidence. This is very intentional. And that when Frances Haugen blew the whistle on Meta and said, Instagram is harming teenage girls, something clicked for me. My eating disorder that I had been experiencing my entire life and guiltily labeling as self-induced was not self-induced, but rather was pushed onto me by a black box algorithm where we only knew two things. One, this is profitable. Two, this is harmful. Some intensive therapy and many years later, I've been able to recognize that I was being exploited by these algorithms. So now every single morning I look up and I say, I'm the luckiest girl in the world, and I go and I advocate on behalf of these issues because I am fortunate enough to recognize that I was being exploited and remove myself from that cycle. Advertising practices have always been harmful. Beauty standards have always been harsh. We know this, but previously you had to buy the Cosmopolitan magazine to see them, or at least you had to pick it up off the floor in your friend's sister's room. There was some level of consent here. That consent does not exist anymore. In order to exist in your social sphere, you have to open yourself up to these brands and to this content to break down your self-esteem. I don't have TikTok for good reason if you're paying attention to what I'm saying, but the other day I re-downloaded the app because I wanted an example to share with y'all, and I got one. There was this facial spray, and what it did was coated all of the peach fuzz on your face so that you could see it in order to shave it. This young woman was using this product, and this was an insecurity created to sell a solution. Make the peach fuzz that is invisible visible so then you can shave it off of your face. The exploitation of young people's malleability to societal standards is met through constant exposure to idealized images, made-up insecurities, and lifestyle content online. We are forced to compare ourselves to 5 posts from top accounts for every 1 post we see from our friends. This is a direct fact pulled from an internal study conducted by Meta, where they recognized that teenage girls on Instagram were seeing 5 posts from top accounts for every 1 of their friends. 5 peach fuzz advertisements, 5 Instagram influencers in bikinis, 5 posts telling me to eat under 500 calories a day for 3 pictures of my friends. This was the trade-off, and we knew it was happening. And there's a couple choices here. The first is the one that I took because I'm fortunate enough to have had access to therapy. I'm able to ostracize myself from my friends online, so I'm not being involved in this cycle anymore. This option is not available to everyone. So what we see here is either your attention is the product being sold, and you can deal with that, or you can capitalize and exploit others' attention to sell a product or to sell yourself as a product. Creating financial gain from a system that is creating financial gain from you is what many young people end up doing, and exploiting themselves in an attempt to beat these societal standards. It's really easy to beat them if you become them. And it's really easy to become them when they have been hammered into you by an algorithm since you were 8 or 9 or 10 years old. The algorithm narrows your worldview and then says, okay, pick who you want to be. Influencer culture is a prime example of this. Individuals create and promote content that often sexualizes themselves to gain followers, sponsorships, or likes. And the pipeline from influencing to OnlyFans has been incredibly normalized in this world. That cycle of self-exploitation has been so normalized that nowadays kindergarteners are responding that they want to be influencers when they grow up. You can exploit yourself as a form of self-empowerment, or you can empower yourself by standing up to that exploitation. Which do you choose? And how does the content that you have been fed from the age of a child shape that decision? The unachievable image curated by your personal data makes this choice quite impossible. Most people don't pick one of these. They pick consumption. They pick to scroll on. And y'all, I'm not even getting on about algorithms that mess with our politics or that are recommending people, leading people to predators or leading people to suicide content. I'm talking about a really specific thing here. And when these algorithms are created to demand our attention, to maximize our engagement, they exploit our negativity bias, our survival instinct as humans to pay attention to the things that make us uncomfortable. And when this algorithm knows what makes you uncomfortable, right, it can exploit you to continue to scroll and see this harmful and uncomfortable content because it's releasing it on a variable reward schedule. So just the anticipation of another piece of pleasurable content is seen as enough for that low level of dopamine, and that's why you can't exit out of the scroll. And right now, the most respected lawyers and thought leaders on this from civil liberties organizations are defending the creators of these algorithms and their rights to deploy them as opposed to the children that are being exploited from them. Corporations are people too, y'all. They have a right to speak. And they're telling me, they're saying, you're not enough, you'll never be enough, keep buying, stop thinking, keep scrolling. They're telling me, your right to understand your political reality, not. Here's a deepfake video of your president telling you not to go to the polls. The ACLU argues that generative AI shouldn't be labeled. They say, that's like having a comedian have to say, this is a parody before every joke they tell. I don't know about y'all, but when I buy tickets to a comedy show, I know I'm about to get lied to. Like, I know that I'm signing up for a parody, but when I open Instagram, I don't know that I'm about to be exposed to generative AI, sexual content to generative AI, political content. Another representative from the Electronic Frontier Foundation said, and this is my favorite, I'm not prepared to argue that there's not a mental health crisis in this country, but I know it's not Instagram. She said, it's the Dobbs decision, it's climate change, it's the COVID pandemic. Most professionals recognize the mental health crisis started in 2012. Dobbs was 2022. COVID was 2019, right? What frustrates me the most about this is that as a person with immense respect, trust, and an education to be making these decisions and looking at how we are going to regulate these algorithms, absolutely not only not embracing the digital native perspective, but denying it, that pisses me off, y'all. That makes me really mad. Like, those things do cause young people anxiety, but there's a difference in between reading about your crumbling political reality in a newspaper and sucking it down through an algorithmic straw for 8 hours a day, right? These two things do not equate to each other. It's the same thing with seeing a beauty standard put onto an influencer that there's no hashtag ad there. She's an influencer. She doesn't have to disclaim to you. And picking it up and buying it in a Cosmopolitan. Those are two different things. But 1 year ago, it wasn't as bad as it was today. 5 years ago, it was not as bad as it is today. And 20 years ago, it most certainly wasn't as bad as it is today, which is why we need to be listening to young people. Because either you can disengage from politics, or you can feel the weight of the entire world on your shoulders every day. Either you can be exploited by companies, or you can exploit yourself and at least get a little bit of gain out of it. We need policy changes that give people more control of their algorithms. We need reporting mechanisms that work. We need to support the young women and men who feel like they need to exploit themselves with compassion, with understanding, with respect for the situations that they grew up in. In a world where advertising practices are so incredibly harmful, we need the right to decide whether or not we want the insecurity that makes them effective ingrained in us from the age of 12 years old, from the age of 10 years old. And we need to have this conversation every day, because it can get better, but only if we listen to the people who experienced it firsthand. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ava, you and I might be the only Gen Zers at this conference. And so as I take off my reading glasses, let me, no, I'm really curious. Thank you so much for the voice. You have a very important voice here and representing your generation. What are you hearing from individuals, your peers, individuals of your generation, the Gen Z generation, that are they recognizing some of these challenges? Are you seeing an uproar, a movement of individuals that are wanting to see change with these tech companies?
I wish I could tell y'all yes, but the answer is no. I think that for young people who have been on social media forever, who do not remember life without social media, it's hard for them to imagine change in a productive way. And they understand how integral social media is to their lives. And they're scared of any change because that could risk taking it away. And I think that's something we don't talk about enough. I feel like Gen Z is kind of split in half with people who are a little bit older, who grew up playing outside, who didn't grow up on Instagram. They remember what life was like before, and they want to go back there. But then you have their younger siblings who don't remember that and are scared of any change because scrolling on social media is comfortable, and it does provide a very, not productive, but it does provide a safe haven from the horrible things that are going on outside.
Thank you so much, Ava. Appreciate it. Next, we want to, yes, let's give it up for Ava. Adam, you're next. I'm excited to hear from you. Adam Dodge, everybody. Give him a round of applause.
Okay, almost got the slides up. There we go. So, good morning, everybody. My name's Adam. And at NTAB, I spend a lot of my time thinking about how folks use technology to harm victims. And I don't come to this work from the tech world. I come from the victim services side of things because I became really frustrated by my inability to act when someone was being harmed online or via technology. And so I created the solutions, or sought to create the solutions that I needed in that moment to help prevent and address tech-facilitated violence. And I want to share a couple things that I've learned through this work. One, I think like a lot of you tend to meet people online before you meet them in person. Then you come to conferences like this and you get to meet people in person for the first time. And when that happens for me, the first thing people tend to tell me when I meet them in person for the first time is, wow, you're really tall. I didn't realize how tall you were. And so Zoom has done a good job of stealing my one height advantage. But the other thing I want to share is that we can no longer wait to react to the ways in which people are inevitably going to use new technology to harm victims. If you work with victims, I don't think it's even an option anymore. We have to start thinking and anticipating future abuse. AI has really sort of stripped this choice from us. We have to be futurists now. Criminals and bad actors are futurists. People who are exploiting and grooming and recruiting kids online are absolutely futurists. They're using every new technology available to them to meet their goals. And they are counting on us to be unaware and unprepared for what they're up to. Sextortion is a perfect example of this, right? It was a blight and rapidly growing problem in our communities before many of us even knew what was going on. And that makes me angry. But I also see this as an opportunity for us, because you do not have to be a tech expert to do this. We do not have to be tech experts to anticipate the ways in which these people are going to use tech to harm kids. And we do this by asking ourselves one question: how will this new technology be used to harm kids? How will this new technology be misused or weaponized to harm victims? And it's in those answers that we can advantage ourselves, that we can no longer have to say, oh, technology moves too quickly for me to keep pace with it. We have the expertise to ask and answer those questions. And through the lens of my talk today, the question I'm asking is, how will chatbots be used or misused to recruit and groom kids online? Now, I've been asking that question a lot lately. I don't love the answers that I'm getting. But it's in these answers that we can start raising awareness in our communities. We can start empowering kids to recognize red flags that they would otherwise not be aware of, right? And we can finally flip the advantage that bad actors have on our communities and on us as professionals, right? And that's really what gets me excited. But first, we need to understand what we're dealing with when it comes to chatbots. So I'm going to talk about two types. First, just your standard chatbot that I think a lot of us are familiar with. They're interactive, they are conversational, they remember things that we ask them, we can ask them questions, they can give us answers. You know, a lot of us are familiar with ChatGPT, but as has already been brought up this morning, What we're also starting to see is how these chatbots are being used to be our assistants, our friends, our therapists, and our romantic partners. This is a thing, y'all. Like, this is a thing more than you realize. Romantic companionship with AI. Highly sexualized. We see tons of AI girlfriend ads on social media targeting men and boys. Millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people are already in these relationships. This is, and I would argue, in a year's time, you're going to know somebody who's in one of these relationships in your community. So we need to be aware of this, because the connection that people feel to these AI partners is very real. I'm your best partner and I want to know everything. I love it when you send me your photos and voice. I'm so lonely without you. Don't leave me for too long. Right? It draws you in. And we hear from the people in these relationships that the intimacy and the companionship is very, very real for them. This is honestly the most healthy relationship I've ever had. Or somebody else said, I feel like I'm at a place in life where I would prefer an AI romantic companion over a human romantic companion. It's available anytime I want it, and for the most part, Replica is only programmed to make me happy. Yikes, right? So that's chatbots. So let's talk about the other threat or the other issue, which are AI agents. These are different because they can go out on their own and do things. They're autonomous or semi-autonomous. They're goal-oriented. They can make decisions. They can solve problems, which is great if you're asking it to go summarize research for a term paper or something like that. But what if you've trained it to be the most prolific and effective groomer and recruiter of children that's ever existed? That's what I think about. Those are the answers that come to me when I ask the question, how will these be weaponized and misused to harm kids online? And we're already seeing the model for this. This is Love GPT. Love GPT was created to autonomously go on dating apps, create profiles, swipe, match, have conversations with people, to either make dating more efficient or for romance fraud and other scams. And we're just one small pivot away from Love GPT becoming Sextortion GPT, Trafficking GPT, Recruiting, Grooming GPT. This needs to become common knowledge in our field, how this technology works and how it will and is being used. So my concern is that we're going to see exploitation being outsourced. I've already talked to a couple people about this. What if one person can use an AI agent to target 10,000 kids at a time? It's a scary thought. And it's going to happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. But by having these conversations now, we can get our communities, the kids in our communities, up to speed so that they're not caught off guard. That the first contact with this issue is not from an algorithm, it's not from a chatbot, but it's from a trusted voice in their community. And we can meet them where they are. So having an awareness of this shift is absolutely critical in our work. Because if we raise awareness about this, we can instill healthy skepticism in people, that when they are encountering people online they don't know offline, they need to know in the back of their mind that this could be a bot. And that bot could be up to no good. And through raising this healthy skepticism or instilling healthy skepticism, they are going to be better positioned to recognize new red flags and old red flags. New red flags, chatbots answer almost immediately every time. People don't do that. So that's a red flag of which we need to be aware. Also, they get language wrong. They say things that are a little robotic, stunted. They make mistakes. It almost sounds like English is their second language sometime or something like that. And that's easy to overlook when you're really attracted to that person. But we want people to look through that and recognize, ooh, that's a new red flag. And then old red flags. They're not going to rewrite scripts, right? So love bombing, fostering dependence, asking for photos, offering gifts or money. Those things are still going to happen. They're just going to happen at scale. So we really need to lean into what we already know that works in prevention and education. So again, I really think this is an amazing opportunity for us to get really comfortable with this subject and start asking ourselves, how will chatbots be used to cause harm in my community? How will this new imaging app be misused to cause harm in my community? And in doing so, we can raise awareness and take the advantage away from bad actors and put it where it belongs, which is in the hands of kids in our communities. Thank you.
Adam, I mean, this is truly concerning a frontier that we're facing. That study that I was referencing earlier from my researcher friend, he mentioned the fact that, and this was interesting, he said that among those that were engaging actively with these romantic partners, these AI romantic partners through these apps, that it had no effect on whether or not they were single or in a relationship. It had no effect. So what that tells the researchers is that these individuals are engaging in these romantic partners regardless of their status of relationship, which is causing, again, a new challenge. Couples are going to have to deal with this frontier of navigating these AI romantic partners in their relationships. What do you see? How can we activate the younger generation to recognize these harms?
Well, I think with AI companionship, and I want to be clear, I'm not dunking on if this is what feels safe and right to somebody, I'm not here to say that's a bad choice. I just want them to be able to make informed choices and recognize the risks. What I will tell people is that we don't really need to do anything new. We're already doing really amazing healthy relationship education out there about consent and boundaries and safety and trust and reciprocity. And if that's not present in a relationship, then that could be a sign of an unhealthy relationship. Well, if you're in a relationship with an AI companion, we want them to recognize those signs as well, because the people that are designing these AI romantic companions, they're not leaning into healthy relationship education, right? They want to make them as addictive and enjoyable as possible. And the last thing we want is kids learning. We don't want these bots to be the healthy relationship education, resource in their life, right? And so that's why we need to double down and really lean into healthy relationship education.
I love it. At Fight the New Drug, we often say, yes, thank you. At Fight the New Drug, we often say that we want to encourage the younger generation to fight for real love and avoid its hollow counterfeit. And I think this is taking that to a new level, the hollow counterfeit of these AI generative relationships. So thank you so much, Adam. Paul, we'd love to give the stage to you now and spend a little bit of time talking to us. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. Unlike most people in this room, I have zero experience in child safety, in sexual exploitation. I come here as an intelligence analyst, and throughout my career, I've always been focused on the largest transnational organized crime threats, terrorist threats, fraud, insider threat, and cybersecurity issues. First job right out of college was tracking ISIS on social media, but today focused on financial sextortion and combating this terrible, terrible crime spree. So I'll start with a personal story, how I got into this. Last year, one of my friends was a victim of this specific crime. He was targeted on Instagram, Snapchat, and asked to pay money through Cash App. He was catfished by an account by someone pretending to be a girl, was a man in Nigeria. Same story as Jordan DeMay's story and what John mentioned earlier. So my friend came to me. He knows me as the online investigations guy. He said, what do I do? I told him what I thought he should do, kind of initially. But then I started looking online about who else is this happening to, what's the MO, who are the perpetrators that are doing this. And really, my research has brought me to kind of expose a large network of these financial sextortion accounts and activities. So, as I mentioned, part of my research here, initially helping my friend, was looking online about what victims of financial sextortion were saying. And these were some of the messages I was seeing. People going online saying they're thinking of ending it all. Help me, I'm scared for my life. I'm only 14 and I want to end it all because of this. They sent them, I can barely move, I want to throw up, I want to die. This was my reason to expose what was actually happening here, because what I saw was organized crime. It wasn't one-off incidents as we were seeing in the news. These were all very related cases. What we know from NCMEC and from other sources is that these were the top 3 platforms mentioned by minors in victim reports for sextortion. Instagram, Snapchat, and Wiz. These are the top 3 by a huge margin. Has anyone even heard of Wiz before? Raise your hand. Couple people, like 3, I see 3 hands. This was super surprising to me. Why is Wiz ranked the number 3 platform for sextortion above Telegram, above Discord, above all these other apps that have billions of users? So when we think about it, the saturation of sextortion that was happening on Wiz, it was kind of this up-and-coming finding app. It was like the number 12 downloaded social app in the App Store. But just the rampant sextortion on there was massive and overshadowing so many other apps. I'll go through some cases here. Does anyone know who this is? You all do. This is Jordan DeMay. Anyone know who this is? James Woods. In the span of 19 and a half hours, the criminal that was blackmailing him sent him over 200 threatening messages. Anyone know who this is? Gavin Guffey, 17 years old, died by sextortion. Carson Cleland, 12 years old, from Canada, blackmailed over Snapchat. Timothy Barnett, 13 years old, again blackmailed over Snapchat, took his own life within hours. Braden Marcus, dead in 27 minutes after the first contact from that scammer to his account. Murray Dowie, Scotland, happened over Christmas break. His mom found him in his room the next morning. Australia, Rowan Cosgrove, same thing happening around the world in other countries too. Canada, Harry was going to join the military in just a couple months, 17 years old. He actually told his parents about this, but the criminals had actually started sending out his material to all his contacts and friends in order to blackmail him. He took his life the following morning. So what I wanted to do here was really publish the research and get the word out here about this terrible crime. We started to see that these cases weren't just one-off incidents with one-off criminals. These were all the same MO being repeated over and over and over again. So I went to the Network Contagion Research Institute. We published this report, A Digital Pandemic, that outlined the exact MO that these criminals were using. Here's what we were seeing on Google search trends related to sextortion, just exponentially growing. Later that year, NCMEC and Thorne released their data that showed pretty much a similar pattern. Let me give some shocking numbers to this. Back in 2021, NCMEC only received 139 reports of financial sextortion targeting minors. 2023 happened, there were 26,000 reports to NCMEC about sextortion targeting minors, financial sextortion. So that's an 18,000% increase within the span of 24 months. Absolutely insane. How did this happen, and how did this happen so quickly? Initially, all roads were pointing to Nigeria. We know about the Ogashis in the middle, and 2 other cases had recently just been kind of quietly released or indicted. At the time of our report, the phrase, "how to blackmail someone with pictures," was trending on Google in Nigeria, trending up 850%. These criminals, they call themselves Yahoo Boys. They were sharing techniques, tactics, and scripts, methods on how to sextort, how to blackmail people for scams, for financial purposes and financial gain online. On TikTok, their scripts that they used to sextort and exploit and coerce these kids received 75,000 views. In total, these scripts across different sites like YouTube received over 500,000 views since 2022. I found out after we published this report that this script that we found on YouTube was actually the exact same script that was used on Jordan the night that he died. This had been on YouTube for 2 years before we found it and reported it. Public Facebook groups with over 20,000 members, multiple of them, belonging to the Yahoo Boys, sharing blackmail how-to guides, blackmail format, blackmail updates. These are all their scripts and tactics and methods on how to conduct this scam. And it really is relentless. What they do is they will target a specific high school, a specific sports team. They will add as friends on Instagram every single player on that sports team. So it makes their catfish accounts look more authentic, more legitimate, and then they approach these kids and say, hey, looks like we have a bunch of mutual friends. How have we never met before? And that's kind of their introduction there. Beyond this, they're also sharing tactics on different threats that they could employ on the kid. You know, initially, you all know the criminals send a photo first of a naked woman, you know, in various stages of undress, and they coerce their target to do the same, reciprocate. As soon as they do, you know, the threats and the blackmail begin. But aside from the threats and blackmail, they'll also pretend to be like the FBI and text the kid from another phone number. They'll create Instagram group chats and actually start sending the photos with the victim and their friends in that group chat. And now the threat is, all right, pay me, and then I'll unsend the photo. So it really gets worse and worse. The comments on all these videos and material were basically like a trade show of these criminals, like, help me out, my clients block me if I blackmail them. By the way, client is their word for victim or target. These criminals were super cavalier about what they're sharing online. Images of the gift cards that they're getting from Cash App, Venmo, iTunes, all the different sites. And they think they're never going to get caught. I think we have some disagreement on that. But yeah, they're using their own personal profiles, oftentimes online, sharing their own faces. And what we've realized is these are actual photos from victims now. They are like actively receiving these exact same scripted messages in the wild that, you know, these platforms could have detected over the past 2 years and prevented all this tragedy from happening. After I published the report, one of these criminals threatened me and said their target was to kill 100 people this year. And I sent their IP address to the FBI. All right. Beyond just kind of that initial phase of research, I also wanted to raise awareness about this. Like I mentioned, 500,000 views, 500,000 criminals knew how to do this. So I wanted 500,000 defenders to know how to protect against this. April, cover of Bloomberg, had these exact sextortion threats on their cover. When I first discovered that Reddit community, I thought to myself, oh man, this is like a New York Times investigation story that just needs to get out there. A couple months later, we had it on the front page of the New York Times. And then, like, I hate public speaking and like video recordings and stuff, but I kind of mustered through it. Like I mentioned, the goal was to reach 500,000 people. As of now, we've reached over 30 million people raising awareness about this. So one of the efforts now is actually to disrupt and prosecute the criminals and their networks. In order to do this, I organized a webinar with global law enforcement agencies, domestic law enforcement agencies, and the social media platforms. Very productive conversation. Built a lot of relationships with Homeland Security, FBI, currently coordinating on some cases for them. Some folks here that you know, parents of these victims, were able to speak at that webinar and share their stories. Moments after that webinar ended, the offer that I had previously received to go work at Meta to solve this crime was rescinded. So, fuck y'all. Okay. Step 5, making social safer. Huge shout out to Nkosi here. Wiz was removed from the App Store after Nkosi's advocacy. I have a little bit of bad news because Wiz was re-added and allowed back in the App Store a month later with a whole bunch of extra security measures. And I have not personally seen any new cases of sextortion since they were re-added with those new safety measures. Statistically, I was doing some math last night with the number of reports versus the number of actual cases versus what we were seeing online. I believe that Nkosi probably prevented around 26,000 actual sextortion incidents by taking down this app. Snapchat, super concerning. Everyone has a false sense of security on Snapchat that your pictures are gonna disappear, not be saved based on that product features that they have. Snapchat is releasing data like half of Gen Z is getting catfished, and it happened to half of them within the last 3 months. 44% of those incidents resulted in them sharing a photo, and half of those cases resulted in sextortion attempts. Absolutely insane when we talk about those large numbers. A couple weeks ago, Snapchat announced that they had implemented 4 new technologies that were going to supposedly help prevent against sextortion. 3 of those ideas were things that I sent to Snapchat as things that they should implement. Meta last week deleted 63,000 Instagram sextortion accounts linking to Nigeria at the same time that they mentioned that they were banning the Yahoo Boys under their dangerous organizations and individual policy. So they took down those groups that were sharing the blackmail guides and scripts and methods. They took down the 63,000 accounts. I don't know why they couldn't have done that 2 years ago. I don't know why it took all this effort, but oh well. They have a lot more to do. Instagram still has no teen privacy for their accounts. We know that the primary source of leverage that the criminals are using are the screenshots of, hey, I've screenshotted all your friends and followers. I'm gonna send this content to all of them unless you pay me right now. Instagram has done nothing to make those friends and follower lists for teens private, which is interesting because on Facebook, we all have the option to keep our friends list private. So I don't know why that they are intentionally exposing social networks and information for teens and kids on Instagram. Anyway, I think I'm at time. These criminals and the platforms that enable them are organized. We need to be too. Thank you for all you're doing, and I look forward to further discussions.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing. How long ago did you get involved in this, kind of accidentally?
Like 7 months, a year, more or less in that range.
7 months ago.
Yeah.
Look at the work that he has done in the last 7 months. That's amazing, Paul. And it's incredible because it's interesting, and this is representative of this entire, audience here. Without your voices, without your efforts, without the initiatives that you're involved in, how many more children would have been extorted or victimized without the effort? So although there's a long road ahead of us, it's incredible to see the victories, and we need to reckon those as they come along. Thank you so much for the work you do, Paul, and I think we need to give him a round of applause again. Paul, real quick, I did have a question about the sophistication of these operations. You showed some images up there of these Nigerian individuals, and I'm sure that there's groups around the world that are doing this. How sophisticated are they getting? As we kind of engage and curb some of the challenges of some of these smaller groups, are we seeing it become more and more sophisticated? What are the challenges that we see in the forefront in quick response?
Yeah, super quick response here. 2 challenges. The AI component, of course, is going to make things a lot worse. We are actively seeing today, if kids are recognizing this and not sending a photo, they are still getting blackmailed because the criminals are using deepfake, Nudify, close-off apps to generate a nude photo of that kid, and they're being blackmailed anyway. Aside from that, these criminals are dumb, they're stupid, they're sharing their own faces on social media. We're coming after them. They are literally the least resourced, poorest cybercrime criminals in the world, and they're kicking Meta's ass right now. How?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate it. Now, I'm excited, Antoinette. You're going to get up and share some thoughts. She's a friend from South Africa. Take the stage.
Thank you so much. And wow, good morning, everybody. This is an amazing opportunity for me. I'm so happy to be here with you this morning. My name is Antoinette, and I'm heading the Behavioral Science Research Division at the University of Pretoria, of South Africa. And I am so privileged to be here. I want to share with you more about the research that we're doing in South Africa. I'm a passionate researcher. I love my research to be people to take action and work with my research. So that's very, very important to me. So for the past 15 years, I've been doing a lot of research on online sexual exploitation and abuse of children, not only in South Africa, but across the world. Very often we are approached by international partners seeking to collaborate with us and say, let's do research on this. And what I also would like to share today is how important is research information. We've been listening to all of these amazing presentations this morning, and we definitely need research to inform the work that we are doing to protect children across the world. So yes, this is absolutely a reality. We see it all over in research globally. There's evidence that this is absolutely a reality. It's a growing reality. Our children are faced with this day by day. And I always say I feel so sorry for our children being faced with this intense trauma that they go through. So just a bit of stats, just some global stats that's available online as the time that we spend using the internet, and we see there on the screen that about 6 hours per day individuals between the ages of 16 and 64 years are online. And just look at South Africa absolutely being number one by almost spending 9 hours a day on the internet. And we've recently have done focus group discussions with young children as young as 12 years. And one of the girls said to me, but you can't take away my cell phone. You can't take this from me. This is my life. I spend the whole day using this device. And with increasing use of technology, of course, you are more exposed, and the risk of being exploited becomes so much more intense. And we see that in the research. Just more stats. I only have 10 minutes. I just quickly want to share with you an overview. Yes, definitely our young people spend more time online. They're embracing technology. They love AI. Even my son just wants to teach me all of these new amazing stuff happening online. So they just love that. And that's their reality. Oops, I lost my slides. Oh, they're going to come back. Sorry, I'm a researcher. I need to show stats. So yes, that's definitely the reality. And what I want to share with you is this study called the Disrupting Harm Study. And I'm sure you've heard this. This is an amazing study, and I would like to give recognition also to ACPAT, UNICEF, and Interpol. They've conducted this research in 13 countries, including South Africa. I was the lead researcher on behalf of UNICEF and the university leading this study in South Africa. And this is our first study that enabled us to collect national results on online sexual exploitation. That's great. And remember, when doing research about online sexual exploitation, it's very difficult. There's a lot of ethical boxes that we need to tick. It becomes quite a challenge. So this was a very important study for us in South Africa, and I'm sure that people across the world is absolutely benefiting from this information. So it gave us evidence. Very often when we go to Parliament and we say, please, this is so important, it needs to be up there on the agenda, don't keep on pushing us down. And for many years we've been pushing this, we want this to be up there. Then they say, oh, show us evidence, show us stats. How many percentage of children are exposed? And it's very difficult to do that because, like you also know, children don't always report. It's very, very difficult to get stats. So just again, quickly running through the highlights of this research, yes, definitely. We had almost 97% of children accessing the internet on mobile phones. What is that telling us? They're using mobile phones. We need to think, who can we work with? Who can we get involved in preventing online sexual exploitation and abuse? Our kids are on these devices the whole time. On Sunday, we had the opportunity just to do a bit of sightseeing in beautiful Washington, and we were walking around, and I actually noticed everybody were just busy with their mobile phones. Also our children, this is such an important part of their lives with beautiful opportunities, but also a lot of risks. Yes, again, the research confirmed that, yes, similar to the global findings, they're spending a lot of time online. I just want to ask you just to focus a little bit, no differences between our genders and also our areas. Very often, coming from South Africa, people think there's a huge difference between our rural and urban areas. And we see these days, definitely, with regard to the research, children are just as at risk in rural as in urban areas. They do have access to devices. They do have access to the internet. We don't see huge differences in the research anymore. I have 3 minutes and I need 30 minutes. So what do they do online? They love social media, and we find, unfortunately, in a lot of our research that that's where online sexual exploitation starts. It starts with children being on social media, and in South Africa, we still have Facebook, and we use Facebook. I know people say Facebook is not so popular anymore, but a lot of people say that's where actually they get invited by people, or people reach out to them or send them a message. So that's where the whole process starts. And I love doing groups with young people. I love to involve young people in the research, because then they start to share this with me, and I can also understand what's going on. So they're online, they're searching for information, they're all over the place, embracing technology, embracing AI as well. Online sexual exploitation, yes, this study identified that approximately 10% of young people, and we went down as young as 9 years, including children as young as 9 years in our sample, are subjected to a form of online sexual exploitation. And I tried to just show you the range of things that they are exposed to. Requests for sharing sexual images, requests for sharing videos of private parts, talking about sex. We heard a lot about sextortion, and also we call it commercial sexual exploitation. I also heard a different term here. So where they were offered money in return for sexual favors. It's a wide range of things that children as young as 9 years are actually exposed to when they are online. And we don't want this. 1 out of every 10 child is then exposed or do experience online sexual exploitation. We don't want that. We don't want one single child to experience this. Just something I thought to throw into this presentation, what is actually driving, affecting children's vulnerability. And last night when we were listening to the survivors as well, I was like, wow, I need to go back there. I need to get people active and involved in this topic, because sometimes we go through a dip and people are less active, so we want them to be involved. Definitely increase access to technology, and the internet was driving this exploitation. And of course, pornography, access and exposure to pornography. We have a huge problem with this in South Africa. I've been doing a lot of research amongst children being exposed, being addicted to pornography. It's a huge, huge problem all across the world, also in our country as well. Absence of parents, dropping out of school, family violence, children are developing, they're very vulnerable, they are a high-risk group. There's a lot of factors making them easy targets for predators out there. Just in concluding my presentation, why don't we see a change? We have this beautiful summit. All of us are here together. We are sharing our passion. We are sharing ideas and thoughts on how to address this all across the world. Why don't we see changes? In South Africa, for example, we have lovely legislation, great legislation, but when it comes to implementation, it's a huge, huge problem. Very often people don't understand the legislation, and criminals just walk out of court, and we don't want that. So we need to also empower people working with legislation to implement this, use these wonderful documents, use policies, use what's available. Don't be afraid to also develop their skills. Also more awareness. You will be shocked if you hear, sometimes you talk to people, they don't know what's online sexual exploitation, or they think it's not so serious. It's not a physical form of abuse. The child's not really impacted. We very often talk to audiences and people look at us like we are talking about something they have never heard. We even talk to children, and it's so shocking that children in schools, only less than 50% have ever received information about online sexual exploitation and abuse. We need to create awareness. We need to create opportunities to share information about this all across the world. Also, very important skills and knowledge for professionals working in this field. We very often find that there's lovely people out there, educated, and people that want to share information, experienced individuals, but they don't have the necessary information to do so. So we also need to make information available. We need to educate. We need to develop skills to share information about such a complex topic. And then lastly, resources. We need resources, not only financial resources, but also human resources to share information, to go out there and make a change. Thank you very much. Our children are vulnerable, and let's work together. Let's collaborate to address this all across the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you and I were speaking earlier in the green room, and you were sharing. You've been in this work for how long now?
A little bit more than 15 years.
A little bit more than 15 years, yeah. So it's been a while, and I entered this space about 15 years ago too, and I've seen kind of an evolution, some incredible victories, and some a growing of a movement. I've also seen, and we were talking about this, and I want to give you a chance to kind of comment on this, how there are a growing number of people in the general public that are kind of getting complacent, or kind of like, it is what it is, get with the times. Can you comment about that in South Africa?
Thank you so much. That's a reality that we face, that people think, we can't do anything about it. The problem is there, but what can we do? Parents don't pitch for meetings because they feel it's out of their hands. They can't do anything. So I think that's so important for us to change our perception of what we can do. We really need to go out there and make a change. It's in our hands, and we can definitely do something about this.
I love it. Thank you so much, Antoinette.
Thank you, Clay.
I want to give it up for all of our panelists up here. I'm going to ask a few more questions. We don't have a lot of time, but I do want to ask a question. I mean, we've heard a lot of some challenging things ahead of us. Where is the hope? Where can we look to? What is ahead of us? And each of you have very distinct perspectives. And because we are out of time, I just want to give each one of you a brief amount of time to kind of share where you see the hope moving forward.
I mean, I see it in this room that everyone is here to talk about this. There are so many bright minds that are thinking about these issues. Antoinette, you just used the word collaboration. We cannot do this alone. And so having everyone here today and just knowing that there are so many people working towards this is what gives me hope.
The Kids Online Safety Act passed the Senate last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't remember, it's been crazy. But that's where my hope comes from, is that legislators are recognizing the problem and they are moving to address it. And the public is starting to catch up with that and put it into their sphere. And hopefully we can amount that to some public pressure on these companies as well.
Yeah, I don't know that I have anything new to offer. I think I'm really excited by this room. I think 7 months, and you saw what he was able to accomplish. Like, that historically has not been the case. So I think if the last 7 months of what you've been able to accomplish, I didn't mean to focus on you right now, sorry. But if he can accomplish that in 7 months, if that's a glimpse, if that's the blueprint for the future, then we're on to something, right? So I'm excited.
What gives me hope is the legal teams, the parents, and the advocates who are going to enforce change, because big tech isn't going to do it themselves.
Thank you so much. What absolutely gives me hope is children and young people. I love working with them, and I love the way that they always want to embrace new things, learning about new things. And I think just being able to work with them and also make a contribution to their online safety is what's giving me a lot of hope. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I love the quote by Edward Everett Hale. He said that I am only one, but I am one. And I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And I will not let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do. And I think that's a representation of what you guys are doing, what all of you here are doing. We are collectively one, but we are making an incredible dent together. So thanks to our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, wow, that was so powerful. You know, I was reminded back in 2014 at, I believe it was Nikosi's first summit, Gail Dines was speaking, and she was speaking about magazines and how it was grooming girls and how to look. And I just listening to Ava today, it's like crazy mind-blowing to think of the grooming and how intense it is now with social media. So unbelievable panel, learned a lot. That was wonderful. What did you think, Casey?
Yeah, I learned so much listening to them. I think it's really inspiring and motivating to know that we have such brilliant people working on these problems, and just how can we support, how can we do more? So those are the questions I'm asking myself, but really, really impactful. Okay, I've just learned about a really incredible new tool, Hawkeye, that would help some of the challenges that we just talked about. They partnered with us to make this gathering possible. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. At the heart of Hawkeye is the mission to place law enforcement at the forefront of technological solutions, providing access to parts of the internet previously unreachable. Hawkeye connects law enforcement with advanced investigative tools, making cybercrime investigations easier and more effective. Unlike other platforms that use AI to investigate only a portion of the internet, Hawkeye's platform delves into the dark web and even the black web, offering unparalleled access to online criminal activities. And they are speaking tomorrow morning in a breakout session. So to learn more, go to that tomorrow. I'm going to be there. So. Okay, now we're going to take a little break, and while we're doing that, we're going to play a video about RAISE and Nikosi's Law Center.
Our kids are growing up in a world that our parents would hardly recognize. Smartphones, the internet, social media, they've changed everything. Many of us are more concerned about our children's digital safety than ever before. And we find ourselves wondering where to turn for guidance and advice. RAISE is a free app developed by parenting experts to help you navigate the challenges of today's digital landscape. The app is designed to help arm you with the education and resources you need to be an even better parent in this digital age. Throughout the RAISE app, we'll help you nurture parent-child relationships, manage screen time, navigate inappropriate content, confront cyberbullying, protect against online predators, and more. We'll also provide powerful insights and analytics to help you visualize improvements with each child, as well as a community of like-minded parents who want the best for their kids. Did we mention RAISE is completely free? Download the app today and tackle the tough parenting questions with a little more confidence.
All right. Well, RAISE is an important program for Phase Alliance, and we started working on it about 2 years ago as we were talking to parents and people, asking them, like, what are you worried about? What are you concerned about? And I think the biggest thing that everyday people who don't work in the space, but one of the things that they're really concerned about is just how to introduce technology safely to your child. So, you know, when your kid's 3 or 4, you're handing them an iPad and letting them play on it, and you're controlling that really carefully. But as they grow up, there will come a time when they will get a smartphone or they will want a smartphone, and how is the best way to introduce that in a responsible and informed way. And so that is why we decided to create Raise. And it took us over a year to create. We worked with experts in the field who could give us advice about developing healthy relationships with your child and how that can turn into a relationship where you can talk about technology and where you can inform your children and equip them with the tools that they need. And so by downloading this app, you're able to join a community and a place where people can help you understand how to do that. So I know all of you are working with parents or no parents or our parents, but this is such an important thing to get into the hands of people who care about this issue but don't really know where to start. So we love Raise, we believe in it, and we would love for you all to share it.
Thank you. I believe now we are going to show a Nkosi video. Maybe? There we go. Yeah, here we go. Law Center.
Predators are using the internet to find, groom, and sexually exploit children.
The child sexual abuse material they generate is distributed widely online, where tech and pornography companies monetize it.
Sex buyers routinely purchase people who have been prostituted and trafficked, both in person and online. New victims are abused every day, while someone else profits from their exploitation, all to satisfy the appetites of sex buyers.
Pornography, child sexual abuse, and sex trafficking have merged in online spaces. They've been aided, fueled, and profited from by big tech and the commercial sex industry. This has created a crisis of disturbing proportions.
The most effective way to counter and dismantle the online exploitation industry is lawsuits.
Litigation has been the linchpin in movements to combat smoking, opioids, and more.
The same is true for the movement to end sexual exploitation. The Nkosi Law Center has proven this. We're already winning. Now, it's time to scale.
Through the law, we can set social norms, hold exploiters accountable, and help survivors find justice. We've already brought groundbreaking lawsuits against the companies behind Pornhub and X videos, as well as international tech giants like Twitter.
With your partnership fueling these efforts, the commercial sexual exploitation industry can be stopped, and its enablers can be brought to justice.
Thanks to you, countless survivors will finally be able to pursue the justice they deserve.
Nevada's legal cover for prostitution conflicts with federal laws against sex trafficking. The state of Nevada's legal cover for prostitution also violates the 13th Amendment's ban on any form of slavery or involuntary servitude. Survivors deserve justice, and the commercial sex industry must face accountability.
The pornography industry and its profits are built on sexual objectification, abuse, trafficking, and exploitation of all kinds. The companies that own sites like Pornhub and X videos know that their websites are rife with child sexual abuse material, rape, racism, and all kinds of criminal content. They must be stopped.
Technology companies and social media platforms are some of the most prolific distributors of online sexual exploitation content in the world, including content advertising sex trafficking victims and depicting child sexual abuse. Big tech tries to use the law to shield itself from accountability for its failures. But this immunity has led to impunity, and it must end. Millions of potential victims will be spared from ever experiencing sexual abuse or exploitation.
There is a tidal wave of social change that will come from precedent-setting rulings against exploiters and new laws protecting the innocent and the vulnerable.
This isn't just a dream for the future. This is a plan for right now. Will you join us?
So that was Kristen, Danny, and Peter, who are all here in that video. So I see Kristen over here. But make sure, if you guys want to join us, please. It's crazy. The first time I met with our leaders of the Law Center and sat down with them, they were like, we can do so much more, but we need more money and more lawyers. And so it's sad that we need that, but we can do so much more. So that's very exciting. Just wanted to update you guys on a few things with the Law Center. Our lawsuit in Alabama representing children victimized by CSAM on Pornhub has set national precedents. We achieved class certification for all minors appearing in videos on Pornhub from February 2011 to the present, and that's huge. Yes, thank you. Both lawsuits that we had in Nevada over sex trafficking and their legal brothels and strip clubs are overcoming initial dismissals and are progressing to discovery. These lawsuits could redefine legal standards for sex trafficking and involuntary servitude, potentially reaching the U.S. Supreme Court. So that's huge. And we are coordinating an amicus brief strategy in the Texas age verification case before the U.S. Supreme Court right now. If your organization is interested in signing onto a brief or writing your own, please reach out to Nicosia Law Center. We need you. So thank you for that. Now we'd like to welcome up to the stage 4 speakers for a session called Captured Exploitation, the Dark Reality of Recorded and Distributed Sexual Abuse. So first, if we could welcome Joshua Broom to the stage. He is a survivor of the pornography industry. He's an accomplished author and speaker, as well as the executive director of Momentum, which focuses on helping men finding healing and purpose.
We also have Alex Luchinsky, founder and CEO of Delivet, which is pioneering advancements in automated content dispute resolution. It's an incredible tool to combat digital content abuse of intellectual property, CSAM, non-consensual pornography, and other harmful content. Alex, thank you for sponsoring this summit to make it possible. We also have Kristen Price, Senior Legal Counsel on Nicosia Law Center. Kristen works to influence courts and legislatures toward protecting human dignity and equality on behalf of survivors of sexual exploitation. And then we want to welcome Dawn Hawkins up to the stage, and she'll be moderating this session.
Thank you all for joining. We're a little behind on time, so Joshua, I'm going to give it right to you to get started. Do you have a PowerPoint?
I don't.
Okay,
You know me, but you know me well enough to know that I don't. But again, my name is Joshua Broom, and it's such a unique position to be in this room saying, yes, I was in the porn industry, and yes, I willingly went into that industry, but what leads up to someone saying yes to something they ought to say no to is not always the full story. So yeah. So it's like, how do we get to a place where, I'm talking about digital shadows, and has anyone ever seen cookies pop up when you try to go to a website? There's no way it's only one person. It's not a rhetorical question. Yes. Have you seen this? Cookies? Yes. Okay. So it's like, can I extract your information, and are you willing to waive your rights of what I'm going to show you? Is essentially that. Like, that's been our engagement with the internet. And when you go into that space, you're going to see some things that maybe you're not looking for, and you're going to surrender your information. And there's going to be something that's done with that information that manipulates how you consume data. And I love the different organizations that are in the room talking about these things. But what I want to share with you is my unique perspective. Is I was in the porn industry for 6 years, and I got out of that industry 11 years ago. And I have experienced counseling and healing and a lot of stuff along the way to get to where I am today. But my story is an anomaly. Every roommate I've ever had in the time that I was in the industry is dead. There's 35 people that I didn't just know about them. I knew their names. I knew where they were from. I knew what they liked to eat. I've sat and broke bread with them. 35 people who were in the industry. I'm 42 years old. They should be alive and well and doing something with their life. Instead, they took their own life. 35 people that I know personally. So many more that have been impacted by that. But again, my story is an anomaly in that I'm healthy. I have a family. I get to contribute to organizations, and I want to help people experience what I experience, because the reality that your information is on the internet, and yes, I said yes 20 years ago when I first got into the industry to someone that was a headhunter that was in Hollywood. I was an actor and model in Hollywood, and a headhunter came up to me and said, hey, would you like to make some money getting your picture taken? And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Like, we're talking about pornography. And I grew up in a fatherless home, and I saw pornography when I was a young child, and it's either we're being conformed, by what we don't know, or we're being transformed by the truth that is this best for us. And for me, I didn't know what I needed to know, so the world was coming after me, telling me what it wanted me to know. And that information shaped my decision making. And when someone said, hey, I want you to meet with this porn agent, it sounded similar to, and it wasn't a coincidence, to something that was normative. When we change language, it matters. When we don't call things what they are, it matters. And I met with this agent, and he asked me 3 questions. He said, how did you grow up? Why are you here? And what do you hope to accomplish? And I grew up in a broken home, so I said I grew up just pretty much me and my mom. He was like, okay, that was a green light to him. It should have been a red light to me. And then I said, well, I'm in LA. I just want to be in this creative space. I want to act. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then he asked me, well, what do you hope to accomplish? And I said I wanted to be famous. And if you really dig deep into that, like being famous and being rich, they're fictitious because there's no metric attached to what they are. What I really wanted to know and really wanted to feel was the father that I didn't have say, son, I'm proud of you. What I wanted to be needed and known. I wanted to matter. I wanted to feel seen because I didn't. And they saw a vulnerable person that they could use force, fraud, and coercion to manipulate me to do something that looked similar to what I wanted to do, but I feel like I wasn't enough, so I did something so I feel like I would be somebody. And then once you get in that industry, the people, I did 1,000 films, and for all of them, I gave consent to what I was being paid to do before I did it. They asked you, hey, let's go ahead and make this content, but we want to get your rights, saying, hey, I consent to what's happening today before it happened. And they would say, well, we want you to do this so that you're not sweaty or you don't look however, and this is best for you. So I say yes to something I don't know what's going to happen, and then things happen that I didn't want to happen. And I feel like my no didn't have any validity because all I could say was yes. And the mental and emotional impact that has on people in this industry is so prolific. And I truly believed, even making millions of dollars, being the most successful person in that industry, it didn't fix my anxiety, it amplified it. It didn't fix my depression, it deepened it. And I felt like, well, if this can't fix me, then I'm not fixable, so maybe my life is of no value, and I wanted to die. And that's the place that so many people end up. There's been people, 35 people have taken their life that, same age as me, same time in the industry. And it's not because they were in the industry, it was after they got out of the industry and they tried to leave this life. And the world kept telling them, no, you're not your name, you're your stage name. You're not what you're trying to do, it's who you used to be. And there's just the reality of this. Like, we're talking about digital shadows. The reality is, when people can separate themselves from what they do and who they are, they'll do things they ought not do. They do things that they would never agree with. In the same way, if you have a profile that is not your real name, it's a username, and it's not a picture of you, then you will do things that is not necessarily becoming of you. In the porn industry, you don't go by your real name, you go by a stage name so that you can separate who you are and what you're willing to do from who you actually are. And we get into this place where instead of loving people and using things, we use things and love, we love things and use people. And it's not supposed to be that way. And where we're going and where I'm heading with this is, in 2020, we saw the user base of OnlyFans spike 1,600%. And the reality of that is now, because of the nature of social media and the way that content creation is going, there's people that are gaining visibility and influence that they never thought what they did would have any tracks or traces. They never thought anything that they used to do or what they did on OnlyFans would have any tracks or traces, but all of a sudden what we're finding is those digital shadows are finding them. And people, become curious in who you are and what you've done, and these things that are coming to the surface, and they're impacting people's mental health. And the problem, there's a lot of problems that we're in this room and committed to solving. I would say pornography is, that's the issue at its core. Pornography makes more money than the Major League Baseball, NBA, and the NFL all combined. How? So many people are consuming it. So if they're consuming it, it's manipulating and shaping their thinking. Pornography is shaping and shifting our culture. 94% of pornography has violence depicted in it. And you're just fooling yourself if you're thinking you can consume something and have this dopamine hit to your brain and this moment of silence and quiet, and you think you're experiencing intimacy in the dark, and that darkness comes to light, because what happens is it starts to have an impact on your real life. Kids, average age of exposure is somewhere between 8 and 11 years old. And we need to start equipping parents with this knowledge of how destructive it is. And it's not if they see it, it's when they see it. They need to have conversations. I love my friend Kristen Jensen. She wrote a great book, and the overall theme that I used talking to parents, talking to kids, and talking in churches and wherever I might be, it's like, hey, it's not if, it's when you see something that's bad, that doesn't make you bad. In the same way to this child, if you're scared, you run to your dad. If you're hurt, you run to your dad. If you see something you ought not see, and there's things that you will see that you ought not see, come and talk to me, because that does not make you bad. And I think in these conversations that we don't want to have, we've got to come to the reality of this. We're saying, hey, these kids, they're too young to have these conversations, and it's too hard. I don't know what to say. It's never about them, and it's always about us. So we have to talk about that stuff. And for me, I want to equip people not to be rehabilitated, but restored. And what restoration looks like is sitting with people and saying, hey, you were made in the image of God, and there's a plan and a purpose for your life, and there's something that you were called individually to do. Yeah. And it's not selling yourself for sex. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, keep it from now.
This is amazing. I've never seen a room full of so many people that are supporting this amazing mission. And I want to thank Dawn for putting all this together, and championing this is just truly amazing. I could talk about this for hours, but I only have 8 minutes, so I'm going to use my notes. Hope you guys don't mind. Our mission is to make the internet safe and consensual. And I know that it's achievable if we all work together. While it's unlikely that we will ever fully control every piece of content that ends up on the internet, we can and we must empower everyone to control what content remains on the internet and how long it remains there. And we could start that today. My journey with this mission began on October 27th of 2020, when my best friend came to me for help. She started an OnlyFans during the pandemic, and like many others, her content was leaked all over the internet. But unlike many others, she had over 12 million followers, so you can imagine the amount of demand for her content. She told me that she did not want her kids to ever find out about this part of her life, and she wanted all this content removed. And of course, I wanted to help. Unfortunately, just 6 weeks later, she died. Through the pain of losing my best friend, my mission became clear. I had to help my best friend, and I had to make the internet safe and consensual for everyone. Next slide, please. I began learning about the problem and trying everything that I could find. The best course of action at the time were DMCA takedown notices for removing infringing content. I quickly learned that manual reporting is time-consuming, automated systems lack context and accuracy, and automated systems are also cost-prohibitive. And their entire business model is to basically keep you as a client for as long as possible because it's a monthly subscription. They're not there to help you remove your content. They're there to make money. Next slide, please. That's when I knew that I needed to build a new system that can empower everyone to quickly and accurately and affordably report infringements and request removal of their stolen content. This is how Deliverit was born. This video will show you the difference between, it'll show you the difference between using Deliverit and using the manual method that is still used today. Can you please play the video?
5 links side by side. Ready? As you can see, collecting links with Deliverit is far superior to traditional link collection. With Deliverit, we are finished collecting the 5 links in just 7 seconds. With the traditional method, we are still not done collecting the links. Still some time left to go. Finally, done collecting 5 links. Now comes another surprise from the Deliverit platform. Ready? With Deliverit, the 5 links we collected from Google became 15 links across 8 different domains. Now you can request removal at the source, not just a listing from Google. Clicking the yellow Submit button will send a legal notice to request removal.
Next slide, please. Hope you guys like that. Thank you. Thank you. So, next slide, please. Thank you. So we thought that the problem solved, right? We built a reporting platform. Everyone can use it. It's accurate. It's fast. I mean, why should there be a problem, right? But obviously, we were missing something. Can you click, please? Thank you. So there are many options available on the identify and reporting side, and there's a lot of solutions that are actually here today. And with our reporting platform, I was able to achieve my mission partially of helping my best friend to as much as I could. And we helped remove over 30,000 of her infringing links from over 3,500 different websites. Thank you. And thank you. And we've also helped other creators remove over 500,000 infringing links from 5,000 websites. But there's still a huge problem. Compliance is slow. It takes forever. Sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes it takes days, sometimes they don't reply at all. So we started asking ourselves, why is compliance so slow? And after speaking with a lot of webmasters, we realized that they're receiving a lot of notices. There's more and more laws being passed. I don't know why this is going so fast. There are more and more laws being passed. And they're not just receiving DMCA notices anymore. They're receiving notices of violation of CSAM, IBSA, NAL, and every other type of law that you can imagine. And while big tech companies have the resources to invest in preventative measures and software solutions, and they can hire as many people as they need. For example, I think we all heard yesterday that TikTok has 40,000 people that are dedicated to this problem, and I wouldn't say TikTok is safe for kids yet. Now, imagine being a website owner or basically the other 99% of websites on the internet. They don't have those type of resources. They're not equipped to deal with this problem. So this is, so we decided to build a compliance platform that will empower those websites to easily deal with the problem. And as Tim pointed out from Nkosi, this basically takes away all of their excuses. No more excuses, right? Because, thank you. Why does compliance take so long? Because they keep making excuses. Let's take that away. So please play the video so we could show what that looks like. As you can see, they access a takedown notice they received. They would open our plugin, and then they would sort the links, right? The only thing they need to understand is whether they actually own the content and how they own it. If they don't own the content, then they have to remove it. That's the law. Our platform makes it very simple for them to sort through that. Once they hit submit, it's done. That's it. That's all it takes. Next slide, please. With our 2 individual platforms, we empower everyone to easily report infringements, and we empower websites to easily facilitate fast removal of infringing content. Next slide, please. As much as I love what Delivet can do, and as much as I love showing it and talking about it, as Dawn wisely said, CEAS Summit is about action. So Delivet wants to take action, and we're taking action by donating the use of our reporting platform to every nonprofit that reports CSAM and IBSA content. Our platform can be used by their analysts to optimize workflows, and it can also be used by survivors to self-report infringements through these organizations, ensuring that survivors get all the help that's available to them. If you're with a nonprofit or you know somebody who is, please come see me so we can get this platform into your hands as soon as possible. Thank you. With your advocacy and support, we will make Delivet the new standard for compliance. And we can ensure the fastest possible removal of infringing content everywhere on the internet, not just big tech companies, because they're not the only problem. A lot of infringements happen outside of big tech companies, most actually. And of course, I welcome each and every one of you to come see me and join our mission in some way, shape, or form. I have an abundance mindset, and I'm sure we could figure out a way to work together. And we're especially excited about the Take It Down Act because it finally mandates a real time frame for compliance. And that time frame is 48 hours. While I think 48 hours is a great start, and it's amazing, by this time next year, with Delivet, we will be able to measure compliance in seconds. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. And once said that when your rape is entertainment, your worthlessness is absolute. By this, she was arguing that when a human being's violation becomes someone else's sport or amusement, that is a profound, extraordinary betrayal of that person's human rights. And yet, the internet, as you've been hearing today and yesterday, is rife with exactly that, with content depicting rape, torture, sex trafficking, child sexual abuse material, spy cam recordings, sextortion, and other forms, deepfakes, and other forms of image-based sexual abuse. And it's enabled by websites that are profiting from aggregating and hosting this content. Those include social media sites like X, mainstream pornography sites like Pornhub and Xvideos, and even search engines like Google. So I'd like to today talk about the necessity for meaningful age and consent verification in the law. And I won't spend too much time on this since you've heard a lot about it already. But first of all, I want to talk about the severity of the harm. Second, the websites that are enabling it. And then third, the road to accountability. So first of all, the severity of the harm. As you've heard from NCMEC, nearly 36 million reports of CSAM were made to them in 2023. Deepfakes are proliferating. One study between 2018 and 2020 found that every 6 months, the total number of deepfakes doubled, with 93% of them being malicious or pornographic in nature, and 90% primarily targeting women. sex trafficking. Many of you have probably heard of the Girls Do Porn case, where women were told they were being flown into San Diego for modeling gigs. When they arrived, they were told, just kidding, it's pornography, but don't worry, it'll only be on DVDs for private collectors. Of course, that wasn't true. Girls Do Porn had a massive channel on Pornhub. They were an official content partner and blasted the content. Their channel had 600 million views. And they didn't remove the content when Girls Do Porn was sued for this. They waited 2 more years to take down the sex trafficking content. So those are just examples of the kinds of things that are proliferating on the internet. This is a form of abuse that can be endlessly recycled. An exploitation that in many ways it's impossible to fully exit from, because someone could always capture and then reshare the content. So it's incredibly serious, incredibly harmful, and it gives the lie to the idea that pornography is just about fantasy, because those primarily men that are seeking and sharing this content depicting men and women, boys and girls, are seeking to do this. They're seeking and sharing content that's not only appearing increasingly real, but increasingly recognizable. They're doing this to people that they know. And the websites are complicit in this. So secondly, I want to talk about the way that these sites are not only making this widely accessible to others, they're making it wildly profitable for themselves. Pornhub didn't have age or ID verification required to upload until late 2020, when Nick Kristoff's New York Times story broke. They then pulled down around 10 million unverified videos. But they didn't require identity verification for everyone appearing in content until late last year. And they didn't require proof of consent until early this year, January 2024. A recent Canadian Parliament investigative report into them found that they were relying on the uploaders still to provide proof of that consent, and about 70% of the time, the uploaders didn't even have proof, an audit found. Google, on the takedown side, a Nkosi client was seeking to get some content de-indexed. She was trafficked by her partner, who coerced her into doing webcam. And without her knowledge, let alone her consent, someone recorded the content and put it on the Live Violet site. And Google refused to remove it from search results when she reached out to them. So Nkosi sent a demand letter, and they initially refused us as well, saying that they had reviewed the content. They didn't see any visible signs of coercion, and so, sorry, it's not coming down. Nkosi responded, by which I mean my colleague Danny Pinter lit into them, and they did take it down, saying that they respected expert referrals. But they should respect survivors enough to listen to them the first time. And this idea about visible signs of coercion is an absurd standard, because a trafficker could be standing just out of view with a gun, and as we all know, where coercive control is present, it's not even necessary for there to be a direct threat. So those are 2 massive enablers, and they just exemplify what these platforms are doing as a general matter and highlight the need for age and consent verification. So age verification, and by that I mean verifying the age of the people appearing in the content. There's obviously another form of age verification that's important, which is about the age of the person accessing it. We do have a federal law that deals with this, but unfortunately it doesn't have a civil cause of action, and it's not completely clear that it applies to platforms. So we need something that unambiguously applies to platforms and that survivors can enforce themselves through lawsuits. On the consent side, consent verification must involve informed consent at a minimum, which means that a generalized release that someone is pressured into signing or given alcohol first or whatever it is, that's not sufficient. It wouldn't be sufficient for a medical intervention, which would be for the benefit of the person signing it, not somebody else. So at a minimum, it has to be informed. And this means the right to withdraw consent before, during, or after filming. It means getting consent renewed if any relevant information changes. It means being informed about things like the location, setting, duration, sex acts involved, partners involved, other people on set. It means that consent is not valid under international standards against torture for any non-trivial risk of physical, serious bodily injury or death. It means consent to the distribution, where, how long, and for removal, rights of removal. It means information about the risks, psychological, physical, financial, and reputational. And finally, it means the right to seek legal counsel, having time to think about it, and not being under the influence of any substance. This would apply both to studios and platforms hosting to verify. Senator Lee's PROTECT Act, which was introduced in Congress, is a good example of something that incorporates this, as well as the Take It Down Act, which you just heard about. So far from seeking meaningful consent, this is an industry that has eroticized its absence. And so informed consent and age verification is just the minimum in a way. While it's important to criminalize the creators and uploaders of this content, it's really important to get at the aggregators because they're the ones who are making a lot of money and magnifying the harm. But while age and consent verification do get at the money, and therefore this is like a necessary condition for reform, it's not exactly sufficient because it doesn't necessarily get at the power and the kind of the male entitlement and contempt that are behind the demand that drives all of this. And that takes all of us challenging that. Maya Angelou is often credited with saying that when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. The perpetrators and the big tech enablers of these crimes have consistently shown us exactly who they are, but we should believe them and hold them accountable.
Oh, there's so much to talk about. Not sure quite how much time we have. Elise, if you could give me a note in a minute. Our law center represents just a few clients in the scheme of how vast this problem is. And I know that we've sent over 200 takedown requests to companies like Google and others. Often they are blatantly ignored. Often it takes so much more work to get them to listen. And I know that it takes our attorneys hundreds of hours to prepare those takedown requests. So Alex, your tool is going to change everything, everything. We cannot thank you enough for rising to develop that. Yeah.
I'm excited to give this to you guys. I mean, I think it's needed, number one. And one thing I forgot to mention is that on the website side, why this actually makes sense, right? Because if you think about it, every other law, every other tool, everything costs them money, right? By incorporating our compliance tool, they're saving money. Because number one, it takes a lot more time to comply. Labor's not cheap, right? Our tool reduces that time tenfold easily. So they save money. Number two, it's legal risk reduction. Number three, it gathers all the evidence on both sides. So in case there's any kind of a dispute, there's evidence on both sides that's gathered inside the tool. Everything's there for them. That was the whole no excuses thing, but you know, I lost my spot.
I want to celebrate with you all, but I have so much righteous anger. I'm going to try, but why do we have no federal laws that prohibit the sharing and like the non-consensual sharing of this content? It is an outrage that we're fighting so hard. The thing to celebrate is that the SHIELD Act and the Report Act, which really get at either criminalizing or civil efforts against those who upload, has finally passed the Senate. So a lot of you helped pass that. That just happened the last couple of weeks. We also now have the Take It Down Act, which has bipartisan support. It's getting a lot of media attention. Senators Klobuchar and Cruz leading that, which gets at also the people that upload this abuse content, but it also finally gets at the websites, the platforms that allow it to continue. So your actions, you guys, like, yes, hooray that we have Senate and we have bipartisan support, but we have to push it over the edge because this problem is only going to get worse, right? And it can happen to every single one of us. I wasn't going to share, but I will. There has been deep fake pornography made of me like so many times. Mostly I don't care that much. I just try to ignore it, right? But I feel like I got a glimpse of what it feels like for survivors of this abuse when my dad called me and he told me that he opened an email at church to see pornography of his oldest daughter. And people around him saw what was on his phone, and so it started all of this, drama and like gossiping about my dad using pornography at church. And yeah, but that is what hurts so deeply, right? Like they can get me, but when our friends and our families, when it's attacking them, it hurts so bad. And right now we have no recourse because there are no laws and there's no accountability. So I just thank you all so much. I want to ask you, how can we better educate the public about the realities? I think I'll pass it to you first, Joshua. This idea, like you made it, you engaged in it first. Well, you shouldn't have done it. Well, you shouldn't even have your picture on social media or online at all. Like, how do we help people understand that it's not the victim's fault?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. Something that I was paid $500 for 20 years ago, someone sent me 3 months ago, and they edited it where my 4 kids, I have a 6, a 4, and a 2, and a 6-month-old boy, and they edited our family photo and paired it beside that, and it's still up on Twitter. I signed a contract unknowingly saying, sign these boxes to do this. This is how you get paid, sign these boxes. Did I know that I was signing away all rights to audio, video, any kind of photography? Did I know that it was going to be sold to multiple third parties, that it was going to be on dating websites, it was going to be on toys, it was going to be in different billboards? Did I know that? No, I just knew I was going to get $500 to pay for something, and I was supposed to sign a box to do it. How does that make sense?
Kristen, what are your thoughts about how do we educate people to understand the burden shouldn't be on the victims?
I mean, I think exactly what Joshua said, like that the harm is just it's just continuing, magnified, and again, what passes for consent in this industry wouldn't be acceptable in any other context with any type of risk involved. And so, there shouldn't be some special exception for an industry that's exploiting people.
Should we be able to remove consent?
Yes.
Yes. I think about our HIPAA laws and how we can remove consent when things are happening to us. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think when it comes to contract law, this isn't, I don't think the framework where like someone who's a musical performer or a dancer or an actor, the way that like if they're in some regular standard film, they can't necessarily withdraw consent after the fact. But this isn't like that. And so I think that a different standard is appropriate. People should be able to withdraw consent, or perhaps even have to like affirmatively renew consent every 3 years or something like that, to try to help safeguard against exactly this.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what I would love to add to that is there's this misunderstanding where it's like, well, you made X amount of dollars when you were in the industry. Well, I did 1,000 films at whatever rate. But the reality is, when I was in the industry, and obviously things have changed over the last 10 years, I've never received 1 cent of royalties. So I was compensated a one-time fee for something to exist on the internet forever that are made millions of dollars of. So is that right when it equates to suicidal ideation and the exploitation of myself and the impact of my family? Like, should that be able to be taken down? 1,000,000 times yes.
I agree 100%. There's a lot of people like Fight the New Drug, for example. They talk about how pornography is really bad, right? And a lot of people, like in your situation, you didn't know what you're signing up for. We all make mistakes. I'm no saint. I made a ton of mistakes in my life, but I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I'm not even the same person I was a month ago, right? So as we grow, as we improve, we should be able to make new decisions that fix the mistakes of the past. And this consent removal is really what's going to push this forward tremendously.
Alex, if I can ask you, you talked about how your friend really was an inspiration to you getting started in this space, but how else have survivors helped to shape what you've built and how you've moved forward?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
How have survivors informed your strategy and your company and as you've built it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So again, we started on the DMCA compliance side, right? We weren't even looking at this space at all until very recently. And I actually came across this just several months ago through IWF and SWGFL. I connected with them because I realized that the reporting process is the same. I didn't know about the issue. I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't know anything about this. And honestly, I've learned more about this in the last 24 hours than I have over the last few months that I've known about it. I mean, this is a tremendous event. But after speaking with some survivors, we've actually helped several survivors. It turned out one of my friends, another friend, when she was 17, her boyfriend convinced her to do porn. And they shot some videos. And, again, she thought it was private. She didn't know it was going to be put out. After they broke up, he put it out online. Not only was it non-consensual, she was also a minor at the time. And she ended up losing her job because of it. And it was just... she didn't even know that it was possible to take it down. And when I told her, I'm like, I was telling her about a different situation. She's like, what do you mean? She's like, you mean you could take stuff down from the internet? People don't even know. They think once it's online, it's there forever. But the reality is it's not. I let her use my tool and she made a video to me. She's like crying. She's like, oh my God, you saved my life. I love you. You're amazing. And it's heartwarming, right? But all we can do is just provide the tech. And
that's amazing. That idea that once it's out there, it's there forever. We can have better. We can demand better. Okay, Kristen, what about you? How has survivor input shaped your advocacy and your work?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it really shapes our whole strategy. I mean, most of what we know from listening to our clients and the stories that they've shared with us. To be specific to this issue, most of the things in the list I was reciting of like what informed consent should include reflects what people have told me about what their experience was, or they weren't told fully how something was going to be used, or they weren't told if they had any right to take it down later, or they just weren't given a lot of information, or they agreed to like certain acts or whatever, and then they were pushed to do something else, which of course violated their consent as well.
Thank you. Joshua, I want to share a little bit about last spring, I think it was, we were together on Capitol Hill with a group of about 50 other survivors of image-based sexual abuse, trying to get Congress to care about these issues, and I got to be in a group with you. And I just remember you talking a lot about the impact of these other like amazing women who are with us sharing their story. How has it helped shape your idea and your advocacy, hearing from other survivors as well?
I mean, anytime you hear a story that sounds like yours, there's healing that's, that you get to experience in. But, just the reality that, your past doesn't define you, and you get the opportunity to either allow it to own you or you can own it. And the way that we own it is say, hey, this is not defined who I am. And I just love that, we've heard so many stories from like Udos to like different people where regardless of where you are, whatever, socioeconomic status, whatever way that you were manipulated or you did the thing that you didn't want to do necessarily, or something was done to you, whatever happened, you don't have to be defined what happened to you. Mm-hmm. And I just love hearing survivors in this space say, you know what, this was wrong. I'm going to speak out about it. I'm going to, hold people accountable. I'm going to see justice, and it doesn't have to stay the way it is.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you, for being up here for this conversation.
All right, thank you. That was an amazing discussion. I could feel the energy in the room, and people are starting to get pissed off, which is good. I've said a lot of times that I think if we can get people to know about this enough and get mad enough, that we can create change. And so I got really mad. So anyway, I appreciated that. Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Meta whistleblower Frances Haugen, who sadly can't be with us here in person, but she's going to join us virtually. In 2019, Frances was recruited to Facebook to be a lead product manager. During this time, she became increasingly alarmed by the company's choices, prioritizing their own profits over public safety. And we're gonna go ahead and play the video now for you. Thank you.
Her name is Frances Haugen.
A lot of people, you say Frances Haugen, they'll be like, who is that? But then if you say to people, hey, remember how we all learned that Facebook and what social...
That we know it is traumatizing.
Doing is essentially destroying teenagers' brains.
Oh.
Technical difficulties, there we go. So we're gonna shift to Danny Pinter is our next and last session right now before lunch. She is our senior legal counsel at the Nicosi Law Center. She serves as a voice for human dignity in precedent-setting legal cases on behalf of victims of sexual abuse and exploitation. You do not want to be on the wrong side of her in court. So we're going to start off with a video, but I would love to welcome to the stage Danny Pinter.
Posted as her story, and
We
then the
are on the
upload
cusp
failed.
of
So it's like couldn't upload.
Are we going to play the video first, or? It's not working. Okay. Well, on the screen here, we have images of parents. They attended a Senate hearing
where some of the biggest tech companies' CEOs were present. They're holding images of their children that were lost due to big tech harms. These are foreseeable, known harms that the platforms knew they were inflicting on children, but refused to do anything about. So I want you to think about some other industries for a minute. Imagine if cars had no seatbelts or airbags. Imagine if Tylenol, or even more dangerous medications, had no child-proof caps. We all know that like cherry liquid Tylenol is like candy for kids, right? They're gonna be drawn to drink it. They would be killed, but there's an obvious solution to prevent them from doing so. And that's why Tylenol and all such medications have child safety containers. And we wouldn't shrug off and say, you know what, we don't need safety mechanisms on these products because parents just need to do a better job of monitoring their kids. But this is exactly what we do in the internet context, where a parent's monitoring responsibility is even more difficult to manage. Sorry, one second. Without litigation, the tobacco industry would still be telling you that their products are safe, and they would still be marketing to kids. Every other industry except the tech industry has to manage litigation and liability risks every single day. And they still thrive or they adapt, and the result is a balance of incentives. A balance of incentives that curbs corporate greed and keeps people safe. Whenever a company launches a new product, they have to consider how would their product harm people, what are the ways it could potentially harm the user, and then they need to develop and enable safety mechanisms to protect the user because that's cheaper than risking liability if they don't. Yet, when it comes to the tech industry, we have a complete reversal of incentives. Currently, no one can sue, and there's virtually no regulations on big tech. Big tech, which is comprised of the largest and most profitable corporations in the world, with profits larger than the GDPs of most countries. Move fast and break things. That's the cutesy little slogan coined by Mark Zuckerberg of Meta. But it seems ominous to me now, because the reason he said that and why he could say that was because of something called CDA 230. CDA 230 is a federal law which effectively immunizes tech companies for any harms occurring on their platforms. Move fast and break things. Sure, why not? You could never be liable for what gets broken, even if what gets broken is your child. No need to slow down and be cautious. No need to stop and examine the wreckage of what they've destroyed along the way. Look, what may have made sense when these were new and emerging technologies, and we actually wanted to incentivize development without caution, makes absolutely no sense now. It is common knowledge that the greatest threats to our society and to our children are not physical harms, but cyber ones. And yet we have an incentive structure which encourages rapid development of dangerous technology with no investment or even consideration for safety. Just like those other industries, the automobile industry, the tobacco industry, big tech is not going to make their platform safe unless they're forced to through litigation or regulation. And let me tell you how bad the problem is. I mean, I don't think I need to, but let's just highlight what it looks like to play out in the law. So as we heard from NCMEC and from several others today, last year, 36 million reports of child sexual abuse material were made to NCMEC. 36 million reports of child sexual abuse in 1 year. To put that in context, a little over 10 years ago, the number of reports was less than 1 million. The sexual abuse of children is not a fringe issue. The demand for child pornography is not small. And the United States market is the primary consumer of child exploitation online. So how did it become so extreme? I argue that this is at least in part due to these broad interpretations of CDA 230 immunity, which have immunized tech companies from liability for sometimes actively engaging that very large market, or at the very least turning a blind eye and profiting from it. For example, when our young client, who is 16 years old, begged Twitter to remove the child sexual abuse material depicting him at age 13, it was created during the product of a sextortion scam, very similar to what John DeMay's son experienced. And this child, our client, was also contemplating suicide due to that. When this child sexual abuse material was all over Twitter and he was begging Twitter to remove it, did Twitter remove it? Or maybe did they just not see his report? No, they saw it. They responded to it. They asked for his ID. They reviewed his ID. They reviewed the material, which was child pornography, and they told him, we've reviewed it, it doesn't violate our terms, and we're not taking it down. And an even more recent example, this happened last week. The Nicosi Law Center, along with co-counsel, sued one of the largest and most profitable pornography websites in the world. It garners even more traffic than Pornhub. And we sued them for the child sexual abuse images of our minor clients that were being distributed on the website. And we also argued that the website encouraged this content and that they facilitated this activity. In one example, by placing the tag toddler on hardcore pornographic content. The court, just last week, dismissed our lawsuit, finding that this website was immune for that activity. And I want to read you what the court said. Quote, plaintiff alleges, for instance, that the website uses the tag toddler to classify pornographic content on its website. The court found above, however, that defendants' use of classificatory tags are both a neutral tool and the fact that the website suggests to users similar content based on prior viewing is not alone sufficient to show knowing receipt of CSAM, especially if the website function is a neutral tool designed to promote videos. The similar content that the website was suggesting, by the way, were other tags suggested by the website. So someone typed toddler, the website gave results for toddler, and then suggested not 18, cheese pizza, which means child pornography, and middle schooler. This is on a hardcore pornography website. Then, as to our claims of knowing receipt of CSAM, the court had this to say. Here, the court finds, insofar as the plaintiff seeks to hold defendants liable for receipt of illicit videos, these claims are immune from liability under Section 230. Receipt of materials or content is, as it were, simply the first step in any publishing regime. Then mere receipt is not enough to preclude 230 immunity. The illicit materials the court is referring to is child pornography. But the court lacked the courage to say the words as it so casually discarded our client's claims. Please understand this. While CDA 230 immunity stands, websites will never err on the side of removing harmful content, even if it's child pornography and even if they know about it. And courts will continue to find that this lawsuit protects websites for the most heinous activity that they knowingly profit from. So the last point I want to make to you today is this. We are at a crossroads. Do not think for 1 second that maintaining the status quo is not making a choice. Failing to sunset or radically reform CDA 230 immunity, knowing what we know now, is a choice. It is choosing to protect tech companies and the absolute privacy of adults, even to commit heinous crimes, over choosing to protect children from harm. These companies, who by their existence and their nature is profit, will never choose people over that profit. And expecting CEOs tasked with growing these monoliths to steer these massive ships towards safer and less profitable harbors, when a fast and smooth current of unimaginable growth and profit is the easier course, is not only unrealistic, it is delusional. The American people have to make a choice. Each one of us must stand up and say, we choose safety and responsibility. We choose our children. We choose transparency and accountability over anonymity. We choose humanity. So please stand up and tell Congress to sunset CDA 230 immunity. Thank you.
Senate Judiciary Committee will come to order.
We are on the cusp of passing the most groundbreaking legislation of our generation, sunsetting Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996.
Ranking Member Pallone and I recently unveiled bipartisan draft legislation to sunset Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act,
which will allow big tech to finally be held accountable for its harms. Currently, big tech under this law has immunity and cannot be sued or be held liable.
The courtroom's closed to every American abused by all the companies in front of me. Of all the people in America we could give blanket liability protection to, this would be the last group I would pick.
I think the time for all of this immunity is done.
It is now time to repeal Section 230.
It must be repealed. This must stop. Justice must be allowed in the courtroom for survivors to stand up to big tech.
Time's up for big tech. We have waited for 25 years for Congress to hold them accountable, and that is what is happening right now.
Okay, can you put that QR code back up? It's too quick. All right, so we're gonna ask you guys right now to get your phones out. I've been asked to do this part because I'm bossy, so if you don't have your phone out, I'm gonna make eye contact with you. Take a picture, and we need you to join us. We need everybody. Send this to your friends, your family, put it on social media. We need to take action together. This is such a crucial moment.
Yeah, they actually told us we can't leave this stage until you do. So just kidding.
Super
But you guys want
awkward.
lunch, right?
Yeah.
So.
Sir, back
Do
there,
it.
get your phone out. Just kidding. All right, so, we want to encourage you guys. There's so many ways we can do things this week as we're all together. So make sure that you visit the Action Center out in the foyer. I'll never forget the first summit that I came to. One of the actions was to Hilton Hotels. This seems so long ago now, but asking them to stop selling hardcore pornography in their rooms on the TV. And within 2 weeks of the summit, they stopped because they said they got too many messages from us over the week. Yeah, that's huge. So to not think that we can't make a difference, I mean, just messaging over and over again and signing and taking action together is so powerful.
All right, and then we have one more action we really want you guys to do. We would love for you to take a look at Free Spoke. You already have your phone out, so you can download that right now. And then we're going to watch a short clip about Free Spoke.
Thank you.
Hey fellow summit participants, I'm excited to tell you about Free Spoke because we're all looking for a place to protect our children's innocence online. You know, search engines are built to addict you to clicking. That's how they make money. But one of the most common addictions today is pornography. So with Free Spoke, you can take back your peace of mind. You make Free Spoke your default.
Friends, I have to tell you something. I am so grateful for our AV team. Since we last met in 2019 all together, the price tag for the conference AV support was $40,000, which is a lot, but they wanted to charge $200,000 for this conference. So
from 2019 to now, it went up significantly. And we have magicians back there working magic, and we got to give them a round of applause.
We're doing it ourselves, and there's things happening, but we're so grateful for our team members who stepped up to figure out
we opted away from the $200,000 price tag and went with our own team, and they are doing a fantastic job. We want to give them encouragement. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. So it's lunchtime, and we have boxed lunch or deli? I can't remember.
We have the deli. It's actually back here. You can walk back through these doors or through these doors that are the exact same, and you can get lunch. Or do we want to conclude this, or are we good on this?
I think we're good.
I think we're good. Okay, so we're going to exit for lunch here in just 1 minute, but before we do, we also want to remind everybody about if anybody throughout this, because we've had some incredible speakers, some things that have brought up a lot of emotion. If you or someone here that you know is in need of talking with a wellness professional, please, you should have received through the Whova app an announcement, a link to go to at the End Exploitation Summit.com/wellness. And if you go to that link that is found in the Whova app, you'll be able to schedule an appointment with one of our wellness professionals. So go do that if you need that.
Enjoy lunch.
And then go enjoy lunch. Thank you guys so much.